either. And there may be terrible stuff being said about me on social media, but I don't know.
Frank Skinner, we have to end there, but thanks very much for being on Hard Talk.
Thank you. It's been an ordeal.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Saroja Coelho. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. I'm in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Lots to come on the program. Hello to the folks streaming us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream, and shortly we'll say hello to the folks watching us on CBC television as well. And a very good morning to our CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us now. Hello.
Good morning. Well, a woman has been sentenced to 8 years behind bars in the death of Phelan Johnston. The 28-year-old died after being attacked outside a Winnipeg shelter in June of 2023. 42-year-old Rebecca Marina Flett pleaded guilty to manslaughter earlier this month. We'll tell you the sentence she has received now. And a lands guardian is working to help protect a UNESCO World Heritage Site in eastern Manitoba. It's called Pimichineke and straddles the Manitoba-Ontario border, home to 2 provincial parks and 4 First Nations. We'll tell you all about it in our next local news at 6:30.
Looking forward to it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Kevin Ipatebo is our streaming producer. May McKillop is our studio director. And Abby Adeyemi is our technician today. It's going to be a wet day today for much of the listening region today. Rain beginning this morning for Winnipeg, ending by the afternoon. The temperature is expected to fall to 5 degrees this afternoon. It's 10 degrees right now at the airport in Winnipeg. 11 degrees here in downtown Winnipeg. Plenty to come on the program. We're going to talk to a man who leaped in to help a runner who collapsed after finishing a half marathon this weekend. That's coming up at 10 to 8. Also in our 7 o'clock hour of the program, a local dog that's searching for his forever home is gaining an online following. We're going to meet Rudy the dog and his foster mom, Kara. At 7:10, little ladybugs are creating some big annoyances for some Manitobans, and one expert says there's a reason we're seeing so many ladybugs right now. We'll find out at 10 to 7. First, though, in this first hour of the program, we'll hear about some key trends shaping the future of Canadian businesses and what they mean for entrepreneurs and people running smaller businesses in this country. Stay tuned for that conversation coming up here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on YouTube. World Report is next.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
You might know Ganya Dio Horn from her roles in TV shows like Letterkenny and Reservation Dogs, but now she's making her feature directorial debut with a new film called Seeds.
I have an exciting new partnership to share with you all.
She'll be here to tell you how making a stoner comedy led to her, without knowing it, making a movie of cultural currency of Indigenous peoples. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Voters in New Brunswick have handed the Liberals a decisive victory. That turns the page on 6 years of progressive Conservative leadership in the province. Susan Holt led her Liberal Party to a majority. As Kayla Hounsell reports from Fredericton, she won against attempts to link her to the federal Liberals.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, New Brunswick.
Susan Holt, making history. She will be New Brunswick's first female premier. She is fluently bilingual, always an important question in Canada's only official bilingual province. She became leader of the New Brunswick Liberals in 2022 and was first elected to the legislature in a by-election last year.
Thank you to everyone who voted, and a special thank you to everyone who voted for Team Holt and our amazing candidates that we elected tonight.
Green leader David Kuhn was re-elected for a 4th term. Progressive Conservative leader Blaine Higgs had been premier for 6 years. He'd been seeking a 3rd mandate, which no New Brunswick premier has been able to pull off in nearly 30 years. Higgs, who had become increasingly unpopular and also faced a revolt within his own party, lost his seat. He says the election result will trigger a leadership transition, but he didn't officially resign.
It's certainly not the night we'd hoped for. Nevertheless, it is what it is. So the people of New Brunswick have spoken, and I have called and congratulated Susan Holt and her team on their victory.
Throughout the campaign, Higgs tried to tie Holt to the federal Liberals. It was clear she tried to distance herself from Justin Trudeau. Her win could mean it worked, or as some political observers have said, that New Brunswickers dislike Blaine Higgs more than they dislike Justin Trudeau. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Fredericton.
Air raid sirens sound out in Tel Aviv ahead of a visit by the U.S. Secretary of State. A barrage of rockets was launched into central Israel just hours before Antony Blinken touched down. Hezbollah says it bombed a military intelligence unit in the suburbs of Tel Aviv. This is Blinken's 11th visit to the region since the October 7 Hamas attacks. He is once again trying to broker a ceasefire in the Middle East. At the same time, Israel is stepping up its attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. The CBC's Sasha Petrusik joins me now from Sderot, near the northern border with Gaza. And Sasha, what is happening where you are?
I'm standing on a hill that overlooks the north part of Gaza. There is smoke rising in different parts. You can see the built-up area. Much of it, even from here, looks like it's a bit of a mess. So that's the kind of thing that has been going on in Gaza for more than a year, but it has been intensifying over the past few weeks as Israel has said that it needs to move into these areas where it says Hamas militants have reemerged and started to pose a threat to troops. So they have now gone into places like the Jabalia refugee camp, the biggest one in Gaza traditionally. And they are surrounding hospitals. They are surrounding schools that are acting as shelters, those kinds of things, and have been for days, to the point where the doctors and the people inside the hospitals and also UN relief agencies have been complaining that aid is not making its way in and that they are preventing people from getting out. I have to say here that Israel is saying the exact opposite, that they are doing everything they can to get aid in and to help people get out. But both witnesses in the hospitals, as well as the Hamas-run officials and UN staff, are saying exactly the opposite.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is back in the region today. What are the expectations during his visit?
Blinken is seeing an opportunity here because of the death of the head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, last week. He is making the argument to the Israelis, look, you've scored a win here. This is a victory for you, a military victory. Take it and use the opportunity to come up with some sort of a ceasefire where you will still look strong, but it will allow you to bring back the remaining Israeli hostages, about 100 of them, who are still being held in Gaza right now. And then we can move ahead and see if we can solve this without more fighting.
Thank you, Sasha.
My pleasure, Marcia.
The CBC's Sasha Petrusik near the northern border of Gaza with Israel. Vladimir Putin is hosting some of his allies this week. More than 20 heads of state are gathering in Russia for the BRICS summit of emerging economies.
That's very nice.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is welcomed this morning with platters of sweets at the airport. He's joining Moscow's partners from China, India, and the Arab world. Putin is hosting the gathering under the shadow of the war in Ukraine. It's been going on now for more than 2.5 years. The BRICS group is often described as a counterweight to the Western-led world and now accounts for 45% of the world's population. In exactly 2 weeks from today, U.S. voters will head to the polls to elect their next president. While former President Donald Trump is amping up his criticism against his opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris is pulling in support from across the aisle. The CBC's Karen Pauls joins me now from Washington. And Karen, what are the campaigns up to today?
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris is in Washington today and not on the campaign trail, but her interview on NBC airs tonight. And her running mate, Tim Walz, is campaigning in Wisconsin, where early voting begins today. He'll be at a rally this afternoon with former President Barack Obama, and then they'll split up for some more events this evening. Now, the Harris campaign is hoping her whirlwind swing state tour with anti-Trump Republican Liz Cheney will continue to reverberate. There have been reports of signs popping up in women's washrooms in North Carolina, Georgia, and other states saying your vote is secret and your husband can't know what you're doing in the voting booth. Cheney addressed that head on.
And I would just remind people, if you're at all concerned, you can vote your conscience and not ever have to say a word to anybody. And there will be millions of Republicans who do that on November 5th.
The Harris campaign hopes Cheney can be their bridge to millions of Republican women, especially in those crucial swing state suburbs.
And what about Donald Trump?
Former President Donald Trump has a roundtable with Latinos in Florida this morning, and then he'll be back in North Carolina tonight. Last night, he told faith leaders about the threat he says Harris poses to them.
She's very destructive to religion. She's very destructive to Christianity and very destructive to evangelicals and to the Catholic Church. In our movement, we love Christians, we welcome believers, and we embrace followers of Jesus.
With just 2 weeks left until Election Day, an estimated 17 million Americans have already voted. More will get the chance starting today.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. Some wetlands are losing their protected status in Ontario. 2 years ago, the provincial government changed how it decides what pieces of land should be left alone. It was part of their strategy to address the housing shortage. As Kate Porter tells us, environmental advocates are struggling to track the changes.
Concerns about wetland development in the 1980s prompted Ontario to create a document laying out which marshes, swamps, fens, and bogs should be left untouched. The Ford government gave it a big edit a couple of years ago to streamline and cut out duplication, it says. But thousands of people worried wetlands that were soaking up floodwater or home to species at risk could be lost.
Rather than the provincial government stepping up to protect our wetlands, they've stepped away.
Janet Stavinga leads a new group in Ottawa called the Friends of Stittsville Wetlands. 2 large wetlands in her area have lost their status as provincially significant.
Under the old system, probably both would have been still protected.
Stavinga is frustrated that the provincial government no longer even reviews a consultant's wetland evaluation. All the ministry gets is a computer file to update the wetlands map. The Toronto-based group Ontario Nature says that makes changes very hard to track. But Tony Morris says they have found cases of delisted wetlands to look into in 36 Ontario communities.
Over 600 hectares of wetlands have lost their designation across the province.
Ontario's Minister of Natural Resources, Graydon Smith, did not answer questions about any delisting of significant wetlands, but his office did point to a fund that helps create new wetlands and restore them elsewhere. Kate Porter, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa today. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Coming up in this hour, we'll hear from Ryan Tumulty, a parliamentary reporter with the National Post, about a Liberal caucus meeting and the pressure facing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Also, deepfakes are becoming more sophisticated, making them harder to spot. We'll hear about the most common types of deepfakes and how to spot them. First, we'll hear about some key trends shaping the future of Canadian businesses and what they mean for entrepreneurs and people running smaller businesses in this country. That's coming up here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the CBC Listen app, on CBC Television right now, and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Good morning. At 11 minutes after 6 o'clock, let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. And Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, drama at the finish line of the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service Half Marathon on Sunday. A runner crossed the line and then collapsed in cardiac arrest. The race director happened to be just meters away and worked, he had in his past as a paramedic for 13 years. He says the runner was limp and seemed to be lifeless. We'll tell you what happened next. And it appears to be a Manitoba first. A judge has awarded the losing party in a civil lawsuit $100,000 in court costs. Manitoba's Court of King's Bench dismissing a lawsuit from a heavy machine operator who sued the city of Winnipeg for loss of income. We'll hear the decision and the reasoning for awarding the loser the money coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. At 12 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, Abby Adiemi is here for a look at the very wet forecast.
I wouldn't call it a weather not to grab an umbrella because you will need one this morning. Across the province, we should be seeing rain in the south with temperatures around 10 right now for Winnipeg, Steinbach and Morris. Cloudy skies we're seeing in flurries in the northern parts of the province. Temperatures around -3 for Thompson and Churchill. Winnipeg, 10 degrees. Forecast for today calls for rain starting this morning. That will continue until the afternoon, which should see around 5 to 10, around 5 millimeters expected actually as the rain moves through the day. It will turn breezy with winds shifting to the northwest, and then we'll see temperatures dropping. We won't be seeing a high today. Temperatures will be dropping to around 5 degrees by the afternoon, and then the skies will stay mostly cloudy tonight, and as we get into tomorrow morning, we're going to see some clear skies. Up north, expect a mix of sun and clouds plus a slim chance of flurries this afternoon. As mentioned earlier, you see your temperatures drop to around -3 this afternoon. And for the regions down south, more of rain beginning this morning. That will end in the afternoon. Most regions will see about 5 millimeters with temperatures dropping to 6 also. So we won't be seeing lots of highs except for Brandon and Dauphin that will be climbing to around 8 degrees. For the rest of the regions, we're going to see temperatures 4 to 6. But right now, we're seeing temperatures across board at 10 degrees. Winnipeg, Gimli, Steinbach, Morris, all at 10. Brandon at 8 and Dauphin at 6. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 10.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Abby Adiemi, our technician here on the program. Kevin Ipatebo is our streaming producer. Hello again to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. And May McKillop is our studio director watching the early morning commute so far. Good morning.
Good morning, Faith. I wanted to let our listeners know about something that I noticed on my drive-in this morning. And this is at Portage in Maine. The northbound Portage left turning lane is down to 1 curb lane for commuters turning north onto Maine there. I also noticed on TrafficNet this morning that eastbound Ellis between Banning and Burnell, the curb lane is closed for road work. Also, Abby let me know about an area that we are suspicious might get a little bit of backed up traffic today, and that is on eastbound Perimeter around the St. Mary's overpass. Abby's been noticing quite a bit of congestion in that area, so thanks for that tip, Abby. Anything else that our commuters are seeing or getting in their way out there? I'd love to hear about it. Let me know. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
15 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. The latest 2024 count showed that there are currently about 40,000 small businesses operating in Manitoba. And running a smaller business can be a tough gig, so a government agency is trying to help. A new study by the Business Development Bank of Canada, or BDC, highlights key trends shaping the future of Canadian businesses. The BDC is an independent Crown corporation that supports small and medium-sized businesses. These trends present both challenges and opportunities according to the organization. For more on this, we're joined by Pierre Clairaut. He is the chief economist for the Business Development Bank of Canada, joining us from Montreal. Hi, Pierre.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program. How would you describe the current landscape for small businesses in Canada?
Well, there's a good news. Interest rates are going down, and we are expecting another cut tomorrow. So that would create some momentum in the economy, which is a good news. But at the same time, there's four trends that we have identified that will shape the business environment for the next few years. And some of them are challenging. The first one is the cost of doing business remain very elevated. The second is consumer behavior are changing. Consumers are becoming much more price sensitive, but at the same time, a majority of Canadians are ready to pay a bit more for green products. The third trend is the labor shortages is coming back. As the economy is getting some momentum, is improving, we are seeing that the job market is getting more tight. And finally, technology adoption is accelerating. So this is actually good news for small business.
You described some of the challenges, and part of those challenges include dealing with high costs these days. What are some of the key reasons why businesses are dealing with those high costs?
Well, the cost really increased by 35% in just after the pandemic between 2020 and 2022. And although inflation is under control now, so costs are not increasing, what we are seeing is costs are staying at the same level. So they are very elevated. 35% increase in 2 years is very significant. It's the same amount than in the last 20 years. So businesses have to cope with the higher cost of doing business. And unfortunately, our research is showing this is not going to go down. We're not going to go back to 2019. We'll have to deal with higher costs in the future.
And so are businesses coping well? I don't know if that's the right way of characterizing it.
Well, actually, things have been difficult over the last 2 years, especially for smaller firms. And the reason is they pay more interest rate than larger companies. So when interest rate has been increasing, we saw in the last 2 years that more small businesses are struggling. Situation is slowly improving now, and it should improve as interest rate goes down. But definitely a higher cost has been more difficult for the smaller firm.
You mentioned technology. What role do you think artificial intelligence, for example, might play in shaping the future of Canadian businesses, including small businesses?
Well, I think it's going to play a big role. In our research, we were surprised to see that 66% of business are already using some form of AI. So this is quite elevated, twice as much as only 12 months ago. They use it to better serve their clients, to reduce their costs, also to mitigate the fact that the job market is very tight. Technology doesn't replace people, but it could replace tasks inside your business. For give you an example, a lot of business now are using a chatbot on their website. And not only it's helping them to better serve their clients, but it's a good way to reduce their costs. And also, they don't have to hire an extra person to offer this kind of service. So technology or AI is going to be a critical factor in the success of business in the next few years.
Do you think the factors that you've described will either encourage or discourage people from starting or even maintaining their small or medium-sized business?
Well, I hope they will encourage, because although the economic environment is not easy for small business, first, it's improving, and the next few years should be much better with lower interest rate. But also, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And you mentioned technology. It's also an opportunity for a lot of business to innovate, to develop new services or new products. So I think, although it's not easy out there, I think there's a lot of potential for young and new entrepreneurs.
Pierre, thanks for making time today, and take good care.
Thank you.
Pierre Cleroux is the BDC's chief economist. We reached him in Montreal, and we're going to continue our conversation about artificial intelligence and deepfakes. Stay tuned for more on how often they're happening and how to spot them when they do appear.
Sometimes if you want someone to do, you need to say don't. Like when you're selling squishy softness.
Charmin's so squeezably soft, it's irresistible. Please, don't squeeze the Charmin.
Or promoting pickpocket protection.
If they're lost or stolen, you can get them back. Don't leave home without them.
Don't Do It Advertising, Part 2, on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Coming up to 21 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Mercusa. There was a time when false or misleading information online was relatively easy to spot, but that time has largely passed by. Now we have artificial intelligence powering deepfakes. So verifying what's real and what's not is harder than ever, which is where Media Smarts steps in with their 19th annual Media Literacy Week. The campaign aims to promote online information verification and digital literacy. Matthew Johnson is Director of Education at Media Smarts and joins us in Ottawa. Hi, Matthew.
Good morning.
What are deepfakes? Why are they a concern for people today? Can you explain them?
So deepfakes are highly realistic and convincing videos, images, or other media like voices that are entirely manufactured by artificial intelligence. So you don't even need an actor wearing a motion capture rig. They're created completely just by typing in a few sentences into a prompt. And the quality of these and the ease with which they're made has improved hugely over the last year. You know, the age of extra fingers or blurry images is over, and these tools are really at our fingertips now. So what this means is that we can't trust our eyes to verify something. Now, that's been true for a long time. Of course, photo manipulation has been possible. Misleading images and videos have been a part of our information ecosystem for a long time, but this has really opened a floodgate in terms of how much persuasive, realistic false content is out there. And that means that we really do have to get over the idea that we can tell whether something is real or not just by looking at it. We have to learn and practice other skills, other ways of verifying or debunking something that we see online.
It's fascinating because it wasn't that long ago when it was, I would characterize it as it was easy to tell because it was that really fake deep voice, right? And everything sounded like this all the time. Like it wasn't that hard to figure out, but now it is easy to be duped. Talk about some of the most common ways deepfakes are being used today. What do you see?
Well, what the research has shown is that the most common use is the creation of pornographic or intimate deepfakes used to humiliate or harass women. But in that case, obviously, the realism of it is not necessarily the point because they are being used for harassment. When we talk about the highly realistic deepfakes, the most prominent examples are ones that are used in the context of politics or current events. So you might see politicians doing things that make them look bad, or sometimes doing things that make them look good that they didn't really do. We see a lot of deepfakes coming out of natural disasters, like one that we saw quite a few associated with the recent storms in the U.S. Southeast, or conflicts and wars. We've seen quite a few coming out of Israel and Gaza recently. And in many cases, these are images of things that are really happening. Of course, the flooding really did happen, and there really have been many people killed in Gaza. But the real images are not necessarily as persuasive and emotive as the deepfakes can be.
And so they rely very much on immediacy and making people feel in the moment. What do you tell people about what to do first when they see something that they perhaps might have a very visceral emotional reaction to?
Well, the first thing to do is to become aware that we are reacting emotionally. None of us are fully rational creatures. We all respond with our emotions. But we can develop what's called intellectual humility. That's a recognition of our own biases, the role that emotions play, and also the limits of our own knowledge. And so we recommend starting with 3 questions that you should get in the habit of asking. The first is, what do I already know or believe about this? The second is, why do I want to believe or to debunk this? Because one of the risks with AI, too, is that it gives us an excuse to not believe something that we don't want to believe is true because we know that deepfakes are out there. And the third question is, what would make me change my mind? And it's that third question, the recognition that you could change your mind under certain circumstances, that's what makes the difference between genuine critical thinking and the conspiracy thinking that passes itself off as critical thinking.
Matthew, but it's so hard though because as you mentioned, we're humans and emotions can sometimes get the best of us. What have you seen that's been effective in convincing folks to be mindful, I guess, and to pause for a moment, particularly when they're feeling all the feels when they see or hear something? What's been effective so far?
Well, it really is a matter of developing a habit of verifying things before you believe them, and particularly before you share them. So at our website for this campaign, breakthefake.ca, we teach 4 quick and easy steps, each one of which will often be all you need to do to either verify or debunk something. So one of these that works particularly well with things like deepfakes is to find the source, because a real image or video has a provenance. It came from somewhere. And so we can follow links, we can do a reverse image search or other tools like that to find out where it came from, and then determine, is this a source that I have good reason to trust? Does it have a track record of providing good information? Does it have a motivation to give me accurate, unbiased information? Does it have a process for checking its facts? If you're not sure, if it's a source you're not familiar with, you can take a moment to do a search on Google or check Wikipedia to see whether it's seen as a reliable source with those characteristics. But we also have access to online tools like online fact checkers. Snopes is probably the most famous one, but there are actually more than a dozen that we have in our custom fact checker search on our website. So you can search more than a dozen all at once. Fairly often, by the time a deepfake has gotten to you, they'll have verified or debunked it. And finally, we can check against other sources that we know already are reliable, legitimate news or information sources. And again, if there is a really powerful video or image going around, legitimate news organizations will have covered it if it is real, and fairly often, if it's not real, they will have debunked it.
Matthew, it sounds like what you're saying is it might not be as hard as it might seem to do all of these things. Habits do make it easier, does make it easier.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time today, Matthew. Take good care.
Thanks for having me.
Matthew Johnson is the Director of Education at Media Smarts. It's a not-for-profit organization focused on digital and media literacy. We reached Matthew in Ottawa. At 28 and a half minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. In our next half hour, we'll hear from Ryan Tumulty, a parliamentary reporter with the National Post, about a Liberal caucus meeting and the pressure facing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Also, we'll hear from Neil Kumar with the Business Report, Statistics Canada, saying that it would take hundreds of billions of dollars to replace Canada's crumbling road and water systems. We'll hear about what the price tag is. Plus, the federal government expected to boost the minimum hourly wage that must be paid to temporary foreign workers. Neil Kumar joins us with the details coming up here on the program. If you see any issues, let us know. I think May is coming in to talk a bit about what we know so far on the commute. Good morning, May McKillop.
Good morning, Faith. You could have just read the number. We haven't had any phone calls, but I did say earlier in the show that I noticed this morning that northbound Portage at Main, the left turning lane is down to 1 lane for commuters. Anything else people are seeing out there, I'd love to hear about it. Give me a call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much. May McKillop, our studio director here on the program. Abby Adiemi is on the controls today. We have lots to come on the program in our next half hour. Stay tuned for that. First, though, stay tuned. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 10 degrees. After yesterday's summery day, we are going to get wet and cold. Rain beginning this morning, ending this afternoon, becoming windy, and our temperature falling to 5 this afternoon. We'll call it a marathon miracle. A runner in Sunday's Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service Half Marathon is recovering in hospital after going into cardiac arrest at the finish line. Race director Jonathan Torchia was meters away when the man collapsed. He and others nearby jumped into action, grabbing a defibrillator and starting CPR. When the man's heart started beating again, he was rushed to the hospital. Torchia, who worked as a paramedic for 13 years, says it's a miracle he survived.
What could have been a very terrible, sad, heartbreaking disaster, positive outcome. But those are far and few. In my career as a paramedic, I saw, I would say, 90% go the other way.
Torchia says CPR and defibrillators can save lives. A 42-year-old Winnipeg woman has been sentenced after pleading guilty to manslaughter. What started as an altercation outside a downtown shelter last summer ended with the death of a 28-year-old woman. CBC's Mike Arsenault has the story.
Rebecca Marina Flett pled guilty to manslaughter in the death of Phelan Johnston. Johnston was living in Salvation Army's Center of Hope at the time of her death. CBC spoke with the 28-year-old a year before she died. She had plans to move into her own place and go back to school for social work. Court heard on the evening of June 23rd, Flett attacked Johnston multiple times, punching her in the face and body. One attack knocked Johnston to the ground and she hit the left side of her head. Johnston was eventually taken back to her room in Salvation Army but refused help from paramedics. She was found dead in her room the next morning. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. Flett pled guilty to manslaughter 2 weeks ago and was sentenced to 8 years in prison, less time served. She has about 6 years remaining in her sentence. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
In what appears to be a Manitoba first, a judge has awarded the losing party in a civil lawsuit $100,000 in court costs. In April, Manitoba's Court of King's Bench dismissed a lawsuit from a heavy machine operator who sued the city of Winnipeg for loss of income. While the worker lost the case, the judge determined the city unjustly banned him from work. In a decision issued on Friday, the judge said the city should pay the losing party because it gave the man no choice but to sue, prolonged the proceedings, and reneged on a position it would remove the ban. The New Brunswick Liberal Party won a majority government in the provincial election last night. Liberal leader Susan Holt will be the next premier of New Brunswick with 31 seats. In her victory speech, she vowed to support all people of her province.
I love you, New Brunswick. And with me, you're going to get a leadership that listens and a leadership that cares, a leadership that will respect you. N'importe quelle langue vous parlez. No matter who you love or how you identify, no matter where you live.
Some of those words a jab at the incumbent Progressive Conservative Premier Blaine Higgs, who campaigned against the French language in the 1980s and whose recent government wanted to inform parents when students asked to use different names or gender pronouns at school. Higgs lost his own seat and says he will soon make a decision about his future. Meanwhile, we still do not have the final results from last Saturday's provincial election in BC. A recount in some ridings will take place through this week. The House of Commons held an emergency debate last night on allegations of interference by India in this country. It follows revelations from the RCMP of Indian diplomats being involved in criminal activity on Canadian soil. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh asked for the debate.
The fact that the RCMP has credible evidence that a foreign government directed, engaged, hired, instructed gang members in Canada to commit acts of violence against Canadians. That is an outrageous scenario.
Last week, Canada expelled 6 Indian diplomats. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A 23-year-old from Poplar River First Nation is now working to help protect a huge piece of pristine wilderness. It's called Pimajonaki and is on the east side of Lake Winnipeg. The Boreal Shield area, about the size of Belgium, was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2018. It's filled with lakes, forests, and rivers. Owen Bear became Poplar River's lands guardian this past summer. Some of his job involves collecting water samples, measuring water levels, and preventing overhunting and illegal hunting.
It feels good. It feels good to connect on the land, connect with myself, and see our beautiful land and just enjoy it. Because I never got to enjoy it as a kid as much as I would have. But now I get to get to come out here and just live.
Within the boundaries of Pimachona Cay are 2 provincial parks and 4 First Nations. Each community has its own lands guardian. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. About 36 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcuse. Hello to the folks watching us on CBC Television and the CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. Abby Adeyemi is following the very wet weather. Hello.
Yeah, wet weather.
Soon to come.
It's on its way. Some areas already actually feeling that like Dauphin is already seeing light rain at this time. 10 degrees in Winnipeg, cloudy. We're seeing the rain cloud already gathered. It's going to be starting sometime this morning. It will continue into the afternoon. We're expecting about 5 millimeters. Also, after that rain, we'll be seeing a breezy afternoon, and then temperatures will be dropping to around 5 degrees. And then for tonight, mostly cloudy skies. That will clear as we get into tomorrow morning. Brandon currently at 8 at this time. Brandon has light rain, and this rain is expected to end sometime in the afternoon. Then we'll see cloudy skies hanging back, and the highs for that part of the province would warm up to about 8 degrees, which is your current temperature at this time. Thompson, it is chilly at -3, and it is cloudy. There's a good chance of flurries today. Your high would reach around -1, but it's going to feel even colder, and then tonight you'll be dropping down to around -11. Further north in Churchill, -1 at this time, mostly cloudy skies you're seeing. Expect a mix of sun and clouds for that part of the province with flurries in the afternoon, and temperatures dropping to around -3, though it's going to feel like -10. And then tonight you dip to around -10 with a wind chill. It's going to be feeling close to -15. Dauphin is at 6. Light rain you're seeing at that part of the province. This light rain is expected to end sometime this morning. Then you'll see cloudy skies that will be hanging back. The high for that part of the province would get to 8 degrees. Gimli at 9 at this point. Cloudy skies also you're seeing. The forecast for the Interlake region calls for rain starting sometime this morning. That will taper off as you get to the afternoon, bringing about 5 to 10 millimeters. Temperatures will drop to around 6 degrees tonight, and that cloudy skies is going to stay into the evening before you see some clearing overnight. Brandon, Steinbach currently at 10 and cloudy. The rain will be starting sometime this morning. That will taper off as we get into the afternoon. We should see about 5 to 10 millimeters, and then temperatures drops to about 6. And for Morris, good morning to folks over there. You're currently at 10 degrees, cloudy skies. The forecast for the Pembina Valley region calls for rain beginning this morning, ending as you get towards the afternoon period, bringing about 5 to 10 millimeters. Expect some breezy conditions to come with that. Temperatures will be dropping to around 6 this afternoon. Across the province, expect rain in the south sometime probably around 7 o'clock, and then we're going to see cloudy skies and flurries in the north. It's going to be a wet one in Winnipeg today, lasting into the afternoon period. Right now, 10 degrees.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
May McKillop is our studio director, and following the commute, good morning.
Good morning, Faith. So I noticed on my drive in today that northbound Portage at Main, the left turning lane is down to 1 lane for commuters turning north onto Main. So I'm curious how that affects the roads today. As well, I noticed that eastbound Ellis between Banning and Burnell, the curb lane is closed for road work. Also, Abby was letting me know that over the past week, eastbound perimeter around the St. Mary's overpass, because of some lane closures, there's been quite a bit of backups in that area. So if people are driving through that area, I'd love to hear an update if it is getting a little congested. Anything else out there that people are seeing, give us a call and let us know. 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much. Let's head to your CBC. Neil Kumar joining us now with the Business Report. Good morning.
Good morning, Faith.
Let's talk about the federal government, which is expected to boost the minimum hourly wage that must be paid to temporary foreign workers. Talk more about what we might expect today.
Yes, and the federal government is doing this as a way to encourage employers to hire more Canadian staff in the high-wage stream. For example, in Ontario, the median hourly wage is $28.39 for the high wage bracket. So once the change takes effect, an employer will need to pay at least $34.07 per hour. And according to current programs, High Wage Labor Market Impact Assessment Stream, also known as LMIA, an employer has to pay at least the median income in their province in order to qualify for a permit. The change is scheduled to come into effect on November 8th, and one government official estimates that this change will affect up to 34,000 workers under the LMIA high wage stream.
StatsCan saying that it would take hundreds of billions of dollars to replace Canada's crumbling road and water systems. What's the price tag, Kumar? Neil?
That's right. Statistics Canada estimates that the cost to replace road or water systems that are in poor or very poor condition would be $356.7 billion. And that cost estimate has increased by more than $100 billion since 2020, which was the first year the survey was conducted. Statistics Canada defines very poor items of infrastructure as those that present a public health or safety hazard and those that need immediate replacement of most or all of the asset. It defines infrastructure in poor condition as items that need substantial work but do not have an immediate health or safety risk. Over this past weekend, record-breaking rainfall in North Vancouver overwhelmed the stormwater system, causing a significant amount of flooding across the region. In Calgary, a state of local emergency was declared back in June, and the city was asking its residents to cut down their water consumption after the main water feeder pipe failed. In Montreal, a major water main break back in August caused major flooding, which led to a boil water advisory. And in Toronto, major storms this past summer caused massive flooding in the streets, raising questions about whether the city's infrastructure is built to withstand heavy rainfall.
Boeing factory workers are set to vote on a proposed contract tomorrow. Talk more about that.
Yeah, analysts say that Boeing has reached a tentative labor contract proposal that would see the company pay more than $1 billion US in wage increases for workers over 4 years. There are about 33,000 workers who will vote on the contract proposal tomorrow. This comes after a work stoppage that has been more than a month long. As a result, production has been halted for several models, including its best-selling 737 MAX narrow-body jets. The vote also coincides with Boeing's third quarter results, as the company is expected to report a hefty loss. However, company shares rose by 3% yesterday in hopes that the strike will come to an end. The new contract proposal was announced on Saturday. It includes a 35% pay raise over 4 years, a $7,000 ratification bonus with reinstated incentive plans, enhanced contributions to workers' retirement plans, and a one-time $5,000 contribution, plus up to 12% in employer contributions.
Neil, markets, how are they doing so far?
In Europe, stocks are mixed as earnings dominate. Germany is up, UK is down, France is down. In Asia, overall markets slipped after trailing a mixed session on Wall Street. Japan is down, Shanghai is up, Hong Kong is down. Oil is up 66 cents to $71.22 US per barrel. Gold is up $13.40 to $2,752 US per ounce. And the Canadian dollar is up 0.03 cents to 72.3 cents US.
Appreciate your time today. We'll talk to you again soon. Take good care.
All right. Thanks, Faith.
It's Neil Kumar with the Business Report. Coming up to 6:44 here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fondal in for Marcy Marcusa. No matter how many Halloween costumes you've worn over the years, you probably have a favorite. Maybe it scared people, made them laugh, or even won you a prize. The CBC's Jane Tess star wanted to hear from you. What was your best costume?
I mean, last year was my favorite, I think. I was a journalist where I had a fake beard, fake mustache, news vest, and I had a Polaroid camera, and I took photos of people and then gave it to them at the party. And I basically did like little interviews where I interviewed my friends while, of course, drinking a few beverages, and that was a pretty interesting time.
I was Dumbledore the Explorer one time, so I wore a pink shirt and orange shorts and a backpack, but then I had a big long gray wizard's beard with a wand and a hat. It was a hybrid. Yeah. I mean, I honestly stole the idea off the internet, but it was still fun. People got a kick out of it.
A killer clown, a lot of makeup, and a realistic knife. It was covered in fake blood, and it looked super real, and I got in trouble. The principal actually caught me walking with it and told me I needed to put it away immediately. And it kind of ruined the costume because then I was just a clown and it was really sad.
I did the corpse bride, like all the full face makeup and stuff like that. That was my favorite for sure. It took me like 4 hours to do the makeup though, but it was fun. They were very impressed, and I put it all over Facebook. I was impressed too. One of my friends who's actually like trying to be a makeup artist actually liked it, and I was like, oh, I'm like, she approves, and she does like crazy music video stuff. I was like, so I was pretty proud. Oh, I did the other mother from Coraline too, like all the face makeup and stuff with like the button eyes.
Sensing kind of a dark theme.
I like Tim Burton. Tim Burton's my person.
When I was little, I put on this like Spider-Man costume. He was my guy all the time when I was growing up for like superheroes and stuff. So it would have to be that one for me personally.
Does that sound like a multiple years one?
Oh, back to back was Warren. We got our money's worth for him. I just always liked Spider-Man growing up. He was always just the guy I looked up to.
I think we just had plastic masks in the day, and the biggest pillowcase you could find. It was a clown or something like that, yeah. They were just some generic thing that, Mom got for cheap. Put it over your head and scare everybody.
I mean, I would put a hat on or something, and yeah, my costumes were always lame.
Did you still get candy?
Yeah, I always got the candy.
Last year, I had a group of friends and we went as Deal or No Deal. And so we had like a bunch of girls that were the girls with the boxes. And then we had one friend who was the host, like Howie Mandel. So that was good last year. It was a good group costume, yeah. We had like the prizes on the inside with like the $1 million. So it was just like fun to go around to people and be like, who has the $1 million?
Do you have any plans for this year?
No, I don't. I'm really nervous. It's getting close.
I'm going to be a witch. Classic. I don't have that much money to spend. We're going classic and we're going thrifted.
That was the CBC's Jane Tess Starr, who once won a $50 gift card for her homemade Austin Powers Fembot costume. You can hear more from Jane as she hosts the CBC Comedy Factory podcast, available on all podcast platforms, of course. And we want to ask you what your favorite costume is. What do you plan to be this year? Are there things that come up for you or things that you've seen that you wish you could have done? Call our listener line, 204-788-3205, 204-788-3205.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Breaking this hour, CBC News brings you all the local, national, and international news you need to make sense of your world.
I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement.
Now's your chance to enjoy a free preview of Canada's source for breaking and live news.
The air raid sirens went off.
Find out why more Canadians choose CBC News Network over any other Canadian news channel. The CBC News Network free preview. On now.
12 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of the Buffalo Treaty. Its signatories are committed to bringing bison back to traditional territories across Turtle Island. Last month, CBC's Unreserved traveled to the Kainai Blood Reserve in southern Alberta to take part in the celebrations. Their host, Rosanna Deerchild, met with Lucille Contreras. She started the Texas Tribal Buffalo Project, which is a movement led by women.
I come from a background of IT. I was a single mom for so many years. I had to make my own way for myself and my children. There have always been obstacles. There have always been challenges. As women, as Indigenous women, I feel oftentimes we're pushed aside. Oftentimes, our voices are not heard. Oftentimes, we're not even asked to speak. So when I was praying and coming to fruition the vision of Texas Tribal Buffalo Project, I knew that if I'm truly taking guidance from the buffalo, they are all led by females. I love my brothers that work in the buffalo way of life all across Turtle Island, but I saw an opportunity for Indigenous women to come forward in leadership. Indigenous women should be at the forefront of the buffalo pathway and the buffalo movement. As life givers, we innately know what it is to care for, to nurture, to grow, not just ourselves, but others and our community.
Lucille Contreras is Lipan Apache and CEO of the Texas Tribal Buffalo Project. 9 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. MPs are back in the House of Commons this week after an extended Thanksgiving break. And a lot has changed politically since they left. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau caused a stir last week when he testified at the public inquiry into foreign interference. There are rumors of a caucus revolt within the Liberal Party, and 4 cabinet ministers have said they won't be running in the next election. Ryan Tumulty is a parliamentary reporter with the National Post joining us from Ottawa. Hi, Ryan.
Hi.
What are you hearing about the Liberal caucus meeting tomorrow?
We hear it's going to be tense for sure. We know, for example, already there are 2 Liberal MPs who have come out and said publicly that the Prime Minister should resign, Wayne Long from New Brunswick and Sean Casey from PEI. There are others who have suggested that, they don't think he should go, but certainly their constituents do. And then we have this rumors, essentially, different stories coming out of Parliament. It seems like this is all fairly closely guarded, so it's hard to kind of pin down. But it seems as many as 50 MPs may have signed a letter saying that they believe it is time for the Prime Minister to go, and that they intend to present that letter to him at Wednesday's caucus meeting. So certainly it's going to be a tense meeting.
How serious of a challenge would you characterize this for Justin Trudeau and his leadership? I mean, many of the folks, or at least as reporters ask of MPs, whether they signed a letter or not, they're not saying publicly. How big of a challenge might this be?
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? They're not saying this publicly. They're not standing out there and saying that he needs to go. Certainly, it seems like, some of the people are looking just for change. They're looking for more from the Prime Minister when it comes to pushing back against the Conservatives. I think there's a fair amount of doubt about, the Liberals' sort of election readiness. I think there are MPs who would like to see, the Prime Minister's office taking this threat from the Conservative leader much more seriously. And certainly the MPs really haven't offered us, they're all still speaking anonymously. Many of them aren't speaking at all. And they're not really offering a what comes next as part of this. They're saying that it's time for the Prime Minister to go, but there has to be the rest of that sentence. There has to be a fuller plan, and we haven't really heard that from anyone yet. So that's one thing. I think all of that to sort of downplay the challenge, but, I will say that for the Prime Minister, even though there's no formal mechanism when these MPs present to him, if he can't say to the Canadian electorate, all of my MPs are standing behind me, I think that is going to be a challenge. I think it's hard to go to the electorate and say, vote for me, give me another 4 years, when there are people in his own party who don't think that's the right move.
So until you sort of hear from sitting MPs about whether they want to be the leader or not, then you start to hear talk from former BC Premier Christy Clark suggesting she might be interested in replacing Trudeau if he steps aside. What do you make of that?
I mean, there are going to be lots of people who are interested in this Liberal leadership race. There are lots of current cabinet ministers who are going to run. Obviously, former Premier Clark, Mark Carney's name gets thrown out a lot. There are definitely going to be people in this race when it comes. But what I do find interesting is, and Premier Clark put out that statement yesterday, making clear when it was, at first it was unclear whether or not she was prepared to challenge the Prime Minister while he was sitting. She made it very clear about mid-afternoon yesterday that that was not the case. that she might be interested in leading the Liberals one day, but not until Justin Trudeau is no longer interested in running the Liberals. And I think that's important. It is a clear sign that he does still have some weight in the party, and he is not going to be pushed out. So that's another sort of interesting tell in this whole drama, that no one is coming forward to say, I am prepared to challenge him for leader right now.
Of course, there's talk of a shuffle with Justin Trudeau's cabinet. We've heard from 4 Liberal MPs who say that they won't be running in the next election, including one from here in Manitoba. What sorts of calculations do you think will go into that shuffle when it happens?
Yeah, so those 4 Liberal MPs, 4 cabinet ministers, have all said they're going to step down. I think you're going to need to see a shuffle within a few weeks at most. And certainly it is something that the Prime Minister's office may attempt to use to their advantage, and may attempt to say, maybe instead of being a dissenting voice or leading the dissenting voices, you'd rather be in cabinet. I don't know how effective that is going to be, of course, because, these cabinet posts are going to be short term. But certainly it might turn the corner, and it also might be an opportunity for the Prime Minister to show significant, rebirth, I guess, and a significant change. He could really shuffle up his whole cabinet again, because there are 4 spots that would be coming vacant, plus Pablo Rodriguez announced he was resigning back in September. He stepped away. So there is the opportunity here for a broader shuffle, putting it forward some new faces, and maybe changing the direction of the polls.
Ryan, it's always good to have you on the program, and we'll be continuing this conversation. We'll talk soon. Take good care.
All right, thank you.
Ryan Tumulty is a parliamentary reporter with the National Post. We reached him in Ottawa this morning. We're at just about 3 minutes before the top of the hour here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. A woman has been sentenced to 8 years behind bars in connection with the death of Phelan Johnston. The 28-year-old died after being attacked outside a Winnipeg shelter last summer. 42-year-old Rebecca Marina Flett pleaded guilty to manslaughter. With time served, she has about 6 years remaining in her sentence. A lands guardian is working to help protect a UNESCO World Heritage Site in eastern Manitoba. It's called Pimachonake, and it straddles the Manitoba-Ontario border. It is home to 2 provincial parks, 4 First Nations. 23-year-old Owen Bear is the lands guardian for Poplar River First Nation, and he hopes to help people connect with the land for generations to come. We'll hear that story coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. May McKillop has been following the not as busy morning commute, but that could change very easily. Good morning.
I think it might change in this next hour.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm feeling lucky. The what I'm noticing so far on the streets in the last hour of the show, northbound Portage at Main, the left turning lane is down to just 1 lane for commuters. As well, eastbound Ellis between Banning and Burnell, the curb lane is closed for road work. Also, Abby and I have been talking about eastbound perimeter around the St. Mary's overpass. There's been some road closures in the area, slowing things down. Anything else, let us know. 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much. May McKillop, our studio director here on the program. Abby Adiyemi is our technician. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. Thanks very much to the folks watching us on CBC Television. You can continue to watch us online on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Still to come on the program, a local dog that's searching for his forever home is gaining an online following. We'll meet Rudy the dog and his foster mom, Kara, in our next hour. Also, we'll talk to a man who leaped in to help a runner who collapsed after finishing a half marathon this weekend. Stay tuned for that conversation and others coming up here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Stay tuned. World Report is standing by.
Today on The Current.
Just like most things, AI has a carbon footprint.
AI is growing at an astonishing pace, and so is the technology's demand for energy. Giants like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are turning to nuclear power to fuel the boom, even reviving 3 Mile Island, the site of the worst reactor accident in the U.S. Energizing AI on The Current this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. Voters in New Brunswick have handed the Liberals a decisive victory. That turns the page on 6 years of progressive Conservative leadership in that province. Susan Holt led her Liberal Party to a majority. As Kayla Hansel reports from Fredericton, she won against attempts to link her to the federal Liberals.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, New Brunswick.
Susan Holt, making history. She will be New Brunswick's first female premier. She is fluently bilingual, always an important question in Canada's only official bilingual province. She became leader of the New Brunswick Liberals in 2022 and was first elected to the legislature in a by-election last year.
Thank you to everyone who voted, and a special thank you to everyone who voted for Team Holt and our amazing candidates that we elected tonight.
Green leader David Kuhn was re-elected for a fourth term. Progressive Conservative leader Blaine Higgs had been premier for 6 years. He'd been seeking a third mandate, which no New Brunswick premier has been able to pull off in nearly 30 years. Higgs, who had become increasingly unpopular and also faced a revolt within his own party, lost his seat. He says the election result will trigger a leadership transition, but he didn't officially resign.
It's certainly not the night we'd hoped for. Nevertheless, it is what it is. So the people of New Brunswick have spoken, and I have called and congratulated Susan Holt and her team on their victory.
Throughout the campaign, Higgs tried to tie Holt to the federal Liberals. It was clear she tried to distance herself from Justin Trudeau. Her win could mean it worked, or as some political observers have said, that New Brunswickers dislike Blaine Higgs more than they dislike Justin Trudeau. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Fredericton.
The Prime Minister is on the Hill today ahead of what is expected to be a difficult confrontation with members of his caucus. CBC News has previously reported that some Liberals MP hope to present a letter to Trudeau. It is potentially signed by a number of caucus members and calling on him to resign. Janice McGregor has been watching closely from the Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what have some of the ministers been saying?
Marcia, you'd expect ministers serving in Justin Trudeau's cabinet to express their loyalty, and they have been. Look, even as she announced her departure yesterday to run instead for the mayor's chair in Sherbrooke next year, Revenue Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau, for example, made a point of saying she believes history is going to be kind to Justin Trudeau. Health Minister Mark Holland, who's staying put, delivered a similar message to reporters on the Hill yesterday.
This is the toughest job in the world. This is a guy who day after day after day gets attacked and punched and denigrated, and and he just steps up every day.
But Innovation Minister François-Philippe Champagne, who's thought to be exploring a run maybe for the Liberal leadership himself, should it become vacant, sounded more responsive to the concerns in caucus.
It comes from a good place, I think. It comes from concerns that people have looked at the polls, they've heard something from their people in their riding, and I think my approach would be to embrace that.
These conversations about the party's future are set to play out behind closed doors over the next 2 days. We'll see what's contained and constrained and what spills out.
Janice, we're also a week away from the deadline the Bloc Québécois set to meet their conditions if the Liberals want their support in the future on confidence votes. How is that all looking?
Not good. We've heard nothing about any compromise being reached on the seniors' pensions issue. And the second condition the Bloc leader set, passing the legislation to ban future trade concessions on supply-managed farm products, that also seems increasingly unlikely. Last week, Trade Minister Mary Ng and other proponents of the bill wrote to senators urging them to hurry it up. But the chair of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee wrote back yesterday to say, respectfully, the Senate directs its own work, and it's going to take the time it needs on a controversial and now highly politicized piece of legislation.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. In Tel Aviv. Air raid sirens ring out just ahead of a visit by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Hezbollah says it targeted a military intelligence unit in the suburbs of Israel's capital today. Israeli officials say a barrage of rockets was launched into its central region, but there are no reports of any injuries. The Iran-backed Hezbollah says there will be no negotiations while the fighting continues. Today marks the beginning of Antony Blinken's 11th visit to the region since the October 7 Hamas attack. He is trying to broker a ceasefire in the Middle East. In northern Gaza, Palestinians are fleeing the town of Beit Lahia. The Israeli military is warning of more strikes to come after at least 87 people were killed in the town over the weekend. The UN Agency for Palestinians says its own aid workers are struggling to find food, water, and medical care in Gaza. UNRWA says hundreds of thousands of people are facing an increasingly dire humanitarian situation. Vladimir Putin is hosting some of his allies this week. The BRICS Summit of Emerging Economies begins today. Leaders from China, India, and the Arab world are arriving in Russia. A fresh wave of criticism is coming from a familiar name. Former opposition leader Alexei Navalny's posthumous memoirs being released this week, and his widow, Yulia Navalny, is taking up her husband's cause. Anna Cunningham has more.
Alexei Navalny, Russian opposition leader, anti-corruption campaigner, and President Vladimir Putin's most vocal critic.
He was tortured.
Sentenced to more than 30 years on charges he said were rigged to silence him. Navalny died February in prison in the Arctic Circle.
He was in awful conditions in prison and he was starving.
His widow, Yulia Navalny, speaking on the publication of her husband's memoirs, knows she faces arrest if she returns to Russia, but she is picking up his campaign.
My goal is to do all this and to help to make all these changes happen.
She knows the risks. In 2020, Alexei Navalny was poisoned with the nerve agent Novichok. Treated in Germany, he returned to Russia in 2021 and was arrested at the airport.
If I will come back to Russia, I will participate in the elections as a candidate.
For Yulia Navalny, there is one obstacle to her political ambitions.
Putin will be in prison. I want him to be in prison, in Russian prison.
She wants Putin's regime to fall, but for now, she remains an opposition voice in exile. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
American voters are just 2 weeks away from the presidential election. The state of Nevada shaping up to be crucial in the November 5th vote. It is considered a Democratic stronghold, but Nevada appears to be drifting to the right. And as the CBC's Richard Madden reports, it seems Latino voters are behind the push for change.
Beyond the Elvis tribute show off the Vegas Strip, a high-stakes push is underway across battleground Nevada, where the political jackpot is winning the crucial Latino vote that could sway the outcome.
Our members are 60% Latino.
Ted Papageorge of Nevada's powerful Culinary Workers Union is organizing for Vice President Kamala Harris and warning his 60,000 members the dangers of a Trump presidency.
They get the hypocrisy. Trump says, okay, he's going to close the border, he's going to do mass deportations and mass tariffs. That blows up this economy.
Latinos make up more than a third of the state's population and growing. But polls suggest Democrats are losing ground where their once reliable voting bloc as economic anxieties, immigration, and crime is pushing more Latino men towards Republicans.
So I need you to please make America great again.
Restaurant owner Javier Baraka says he's voting Trump, saying his hardline approach on immigration may repel some Latino voters, but not him.
Because I know he's not talking about me. I know he's talking about people that come and do bad things.
Trump bajó nuestros impuestos. Both candidates are spending millions on Spanish language ads.
Oh, it is so wonderful to be back in Nevada.
And courting service workers by promising no tax on tips. They're all in on Nevada because what happens in Vegas could determine the winner. Richard Madden, CBC News, Las Vegas.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, Manitoba. Faith Fondal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Coming up in the program, a local woman has been reaching out to Winnipeg's Reddit community in the hopes of finding a forever home for her foster dog. We'll meet Rudy the dog and his foster mom, Kara. That's in our next half hour of the program. Also ahead, we'll hear from a man who leaped in to help a runner who collapsed after finishing a half marathon this weekend. First, though, why are there so many ladybugs in the city? We'll hear from an entomologist about that and what to do if you find some hanging out in your house. Stay tuned for that conversation coming up here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on YouTube. First, let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, what appears to be a Manitoba first, a judge has awarded the losing party in a civil lawsuit $100,000 in court costs. In April, Manitoba's Court of King's Bench dismissed a lawsuit from a heavy machine operator who sued the city of Winnipeg for loss of income. While the worker lost the case, the judge determined the city unjustly banned him from work. We're going to hear more of what the judge said in his decision. And a lands guardian is working to help protect a UNESCO World Heritage Site in eastern Manitoba. 23-year-old Owen Bear is the lands guardian for Poplar River First Nation. He hopes to help people connect with the land for generations to come. We'll hear that story as well in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. Good morning. And good morning to Abby Adiemi, who's been following the weather. Hello.
Hello. I'm just trying to look outside to see if it started. Rain is expected in the south with temperatures dropping throughout the day. And the northern regions will see chilly with flurries, chilly conditions with flurries. That's what's expected. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 10 degrees. It's cloudy outside. That cloud is trying to gather the rain we're expecting this morning. That should be ending by the afternoon period. We will be seeing about 5 millimeters of rain once this system passes us. And then it will turn breezy as the winds will be shifting to the northwest later. Temperatures actually going to be dropping to around 5-6 degrees for most of the region by the afternoon, and it's going to remain mostly cloudy as we get into the afternoon period. Though the winds will be easing off as we get into the evening, it's going to go light, and then tomorrow we should see some sunshine. In the northern part of the province, we are expecting more like a mix of sun and clouds, plus a slim chance of flurries this afternoon, and temperatures dropping to -3 this afternoon. Churchill at -1, and then Thompson at -4. If we look at the southern region, as mentioned earlier, we should be seeing rain beginning this morning and ending sometime in the afternoon. Some areas we see about 10 millimeters of rain. Right now we're seeing temperatures hover near 9 degrees for Steinberg and Maurice. Brandon is at 8, and Gimli is at 7 degrees. Our friend Debosh from Turtle Mountain actually sent me a message this morning and said it's cloudy, it's windy, it's cool here in Turtle Mountain. Good morning to our friends over there. Enjoy this temperature today.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
May McKillop has been following the commute. Good morning.
Good morning, Faith. I noticed on northbound Portage at Main, the left turning lane is down to 1 lane for commuters turning north onto Main Street. As well, eastbound Ellis between Banning and Burnell, the curb lane is closed for road work. That's what I'm seeing so far. We haven't had any calls on the commuter line, so I would love to hear how the roads are this morning, or how all of our listeners' commute is going. Give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Coming up to 15 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Ladybugs seem to be invading the city. Not exactly, though. But the little red and black bugs seem to be everywhere. Jordan Bannerman is an entomology instructor at University of Manitoba. He says there's a reason we're seeing so many of the little creatures everywhere. Jordan, good morning. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Why are we seeing so many ladybugs right now? Is it typical for us to see this kind of activity?
I think it's a combination of a couple things. Their numbers kind of tend to fluctuate year to year. We had a fairly high or moderate level of aphids in a lot of our crops in Manitoba this year, and that really helps to build the lady beetle populations right through till this time of year. And the other factor is it's been very, very warm this fall, and so the warm days are the days that we tend to see a lot of these insects flying around, and they're looking for a nice protected place to overwinter.
I'm glad we're having this conversation because depending on who you ask, some folks might say, no, they're not ladybugs, and some people will say, yeah, they definitely are. What species do we tend to see this time of year? Are both of those versions of what people are seeing correct?
Yes. So I just have it ingrained in my head to call them lady beetles. They are small beetles. Ladybugs is perfectly fine as well. We see two really common species right now. One's called the seven-spot lady beetle or ladybug. The other is the Asian multicolored lady beetle or ladybug. Those are the two species that if you're out raking the leaves in your yard or you're seeing a few accidentally sneak into your house, chances are very good it's one of those two.
Do you have to worry about them? I mean, I know where I live in Osborne Village, just outside of where our fence is for the condo that we're in. They're like all over the fence. But sometimes I will find them inside the house. Is that something we should be worried about, or folks should be worried about?
They're a little bit of a nuisance. They're not anything to be overly concerned about. The Asian multicolored lady beetle also has a habit of aggregating. So when they find a good spot, you often see quite high numbers of them. There's a couple, minor things. Sometimes pets will try to eat them and stuff, which is not the best thing.
Right.
But for the most part, the best thing to do is to just try to remove the ones that you can if they are particularly getting inside. And if they are getting inside, look at where they're getting in and try to feel that. So cracks around doors or windows or unfixed screens, those kinds of things.
How do you get rid of them?
I just suggest either a little vacuum or just scooping them into a little container and then dropping them outside.
When you look at ladybugs, I imagine they play a role in the wider ecosystem. When you put your entomology hat on, what stands out for you?
So lady beetles are very good predators and beneficial to us throughout the entire growing season, whether that's just for plants in your garden or very much for agriculture going on in the province. They're feeding on aphids. Aphids are agricultural pests, and they're doing good work other than the nuisance that they cause at this time of year.
What's your do you have a favorite memory that stands out for you when you think about ladybugs?
I talk about them a lot because I do extension with farmers, for example. And one of the things I always like to share is just how voracious they are. So some of our lady beetle species are capable of eating about 100 aphids a day, which is exceptional considering how small those little guys are.
No kidding.
They do really great work. And we just have to put up with a little bit of nuisance.
Jordan, thanks for making time today. We'll talk to you again soon. Take good care.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Jordan Bannerman is an entomology instructor at the University of Manitoba.
Allison Russell on the recorder. Arkells on the accordion. Shawnee Kish on the kazoo. The Canadian Music Class Challenge is back. Pick a song from our list, create a cover version, upload the video. Amazing prizes are up for grabs, including thousands of dollars worth of new musical instruments for your class. The deadline is November 18th. Check out all the details and register now at cbcmusic.ca/musicclass.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
Coming up to 20 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. And still to come, a local dog that's searching for his forever home is gaining an online following. We're going to meet Rudy, the dog, and his foster mom, Kara. That's coming up in our next half hour of the program. First, though, Tapes in Motion is a Peterborough, Ontario duo creating music for a couple of years now, but the duo has got quite a catalog. This is one of their latest. It's called Theme Song.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Out of Ontario, that was Tapes in Motion with Theme Song. Coming up to 24 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, and fall is officially upon us. But temperatures have been making it feel more like summer than the cool autumn days we have come to expect this time of year. That got us wondering how hard it is to get into the fall spirit when it feels like summer outside. The CBC's Josette Lafleur hit the streets to find out how folks are feeling about the season.
I don't know, if you go to any retailer and all the Halloween stuff is out, they kind of rub it in your face.
Yeah, it's very, very hot.
Yeah.
And I have my sweaters, but I haven't been able to wear them yet.
So are you a fall fan?
I am a fall fan because I wasn't born and raised here. I was born in a tropical country, and it's super hot there. And the reason I don't want to go back is because it's too hot. And I come here, and the winter is just getting farther and farther. Fall is getting farther and farther. Yeah. And it just I really need winter here.
I'm really hoping that we have weather like this for a little bit longer.
Oh, you are?
Yes, I am.
So you're a summer person?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah. I enjoy summer, like I enjoy all the seasons, but I'd like a little more of this nice weather that we're having until the fall does come. But the foliage will be here soon enough. In fact, it's already starting to turn in some places, so I do appreciate that about fall. But no, but really, it'd be nice to have a few more sunny days.
I am kind of looking forward to Halloween.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am. I'm a sucker. But I just don't want the summer to end. It's too bad Halloween didn't fall in the summer. That would have been awesome.
It's usually too hot in the summer for me to go to a beach. I usually go in the fall instead. Yeah, I just really like it when it's kind of crispy cold, but not too cold.
Thanks very much to the CBC's Josette Lafleur for bringing us those voices from the street. Don't worry, rain is expected in the forecast for Winnipeg today, and in other parts, snow is in the forecast. So we'll have a full look at your forecast still to come. First, though, let's head to your CBC National Sports Desk, and Scott Regier joining us now. Not good evening. It's good morning.
I'm with you.
Good morning.
Often with these crazy hours, we work. I'm in the middle of the afternoon after my nap midday, and I go out and say good morning to everybody, and they're all looking at me like,
they do this. They do the sideways face. Like, what are you talking about?
Hairy eyeballs.
Probably Jets fans not doing the sideways look though, because the Jets continue their excellent start to the season tonight in St. Louis.
Right. After taking down the Penguins the last time out, Faith, the Jets. I love this. The lone undefeated team left in the league, and it gets better than just that. They have the top power play. They're tied for second most goals scored while giving up the fewest amount of goals. In fact, if there was one area that we could nitpick about, it's that the Jets don't seem to be clicking when it comes to their penalty kill, where they're, middle of the pack. They're really not too bad. Still, aside from the opening game in Edmonton, all of these results have come at home. For head coach Scott Arniel, these next road games, including tonight in St. Louis, will give the Jets an opportunity to prove they can do it regardless of venue.
Getting out in the road, that's another area. You talked about division. We talked about whether it was the East or whatever, but being good on the road. We've got a lot coming here on the road in the next stretch, so we do need to be good. And, I've said before, there isn't a home way or a road way to play. It's just the right way, and that's what we have to do. We've done that here in the last 5. Now we got to go out on the road and do the same thing.
Should they win tonight, Faith, it will be the longest opening winning streak for a Canadian team in almost 2 decades, that being the 2005 Ottawa Senators, believe it or not, who made it to 6 games. So that's the backdrop here. Jets and Blues tonight, puck drop Central Time, 7 o'clock.
Go Jets, go. The NFL now, where one of the league stars says he's healed and ready to go despite suffering multiple concussions. Who are we talking about here?
Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who says he's going to practice tomorrow and he plans to play, if all goes well, Sunday against Arizona. Dating back to his university days, Faith, Tagovailoa has dealt with 4 concussions in his career, and those are just the ones that have been diagnosed. And reporters asked him yesterday whether it is wise to return to play.
How much risk do we take when we get up in the morning to go drive to work, get into a car crash? Maybe, I don't know. Every time we all suit up, we're all taking a risk that we could potentially get hurt, whether it's a concussion, a broken bone. You get up off of the bed the wrong way, you potentially could risk you spraining your ankle. There's just risk in any and everything. I'm willing to play the odds. I appreciate your concern. I really do. I love this game, and I love it to the death of me. That's it.
Good answer.
Well, yeah, let's hope his words aren't prophetic. More than 300 former NFL players, Faith, have been posthumously diagnosed with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a type of brain damage linked to concussions. Some players have taken to wearing guardian caps, those soft-shelled helmet covers that can significantly reduce impact to the brain, but Tagovailoa says he will not be wearing one of those upon his return, which will come if he is cleared by the league's concussion protocol Sunday, as I say, against Arizona.
Some pretty serious stuff and serious conversations there. Before you go, in basketball, another league's season gets started as another's comes to an end.
Yeah, the NBA tips off tonight, Faith, with the defending champion Celtics hosting the Knicks and Lakers entertaining Minnesota. LeBron James and his son Bronny could make history tonight, playing in the same regular season game. And I know baseball's own father and son duo, Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr., are going to be on hand to watch them. And we mentioned the two different basketball leagues, WNBA players. The union has decided to opt out of its current CBA 2 years before it's meant to expire. And a lot of this has to do with that lucrative television deal they signed over the course of the summer where they increased revenue by about 6 times. So stay tuned on that front.
Have a good morning and talk to you tomorrow.
Good night.
With my very good night as well.
Just kidding.
All right. Scott Regier from your CBC National Sports Desk. Still to come on the program, we're going to meet Rudy the dog and his foster mom, Kara. Stay tuned for that coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 10 o'clock. Rain is on the way, and our temperature is on the way down, falling to 5 this afternoon. Rain beginning this morning and then ending this afternoon. Drama and irony at a fundraiser for the Heart and Stroke Foundation. A runner crossed the finish line of the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service half marathon on Sunday and collapsed in cardiac arrest. The race director was just meters away. Jonathan Torquia had worked as a paramedic for 13 years. He and others grabbed a defibrillator and started CPR.
I went up and rolled him over and felt for carotid pulse because he was pretty lifeless. Like it seemed, just being a paramedic for that many years, you can tell a dead body or a lifeless body from one that's not, right? And he was just flaccid, totally limp.
The man's heart started beating again, and he now is recovering in hospital. Torquia says the man had no pre-existing medical history and runs all the time. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. Well, it appears to be a Manitoba first. The losing party in a civil lawsuit has been awarded $100,000 in court costs. As CBC's Bartley Kivas explains, the case involves a heavy machine operator who was banned from working for the city of Winnipeg.
In 2017, the city banned a contractor, claiming he lied, trespassed, and stole equipment. The worker sued the city for loss of income, but failed in court because he did not prove city officials engaged in misfeasance, caused loss by unlawful means, or breached a duty to be fair. In April, Manitoba Court of King's Bench Justice Chris Martin said this was no vindication for the city. The judge said the worker proved there was no basis for the claims made about him. In a decision issued Friday, Martin awarded the worker $100,000, noting the city gave him no choice but to sue, prolong the legal proceedings, and then reneged on a position it would lift the ban. The judge said he's not aware of a Manitoba precedent for awarding costs to a losing party. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A lands guardian is working to help protect a UNESCO World Heritage Site in eastern Manitoba. It's called Pimajonake and straddles the Manitoba-Ontario border. It is home to 2 provincial parks and 4 First Nations. 23-year-old Owen Bear is the land guardian for Poplar River First Nation. Some of his job involves collecting water samples, measuring water levels, and preventing overhunting or illegal hunting. He hopes to help people connect with the land for generations to come.
It's a really beautiful place, and it is one of our traditional lands that we have the right to go to, and people have been going there years and years, families, generations, so it's a bit of an understatement to say it's like what it means to them. It's like everything. It's their land and it's their life.
Now, the whole area is about the size of Belgium. It's legally protected from all commercial logging, mining, hydroelectric development, and all waterways are free from diversions and dams. A 42-year-old Winnipeg woman has been sentenced after pleading guilty to manslaughter. What started as an altercation outside a downtown shelter last summer ended with the death of a 28-year-old woman. CBC's Mike Arsenault reports.
Rebecca Marina Flett pled guilty to manslaughter in the death of Phelan Johnston. Johnston was living in Salvation Army's Center of Hope at the time of her death. CBC spoke with the 28-year-old a year before she died. She had plans to move into her own place and go back to school for social work. Court heard on the evening of June 23rd, Flett attacked Johnston multiple times, punching her in the face and body. One attack knocked Johnston to the ground and she hit the left side of her head. Johnston was eventually taken back to her room in Salvation Army, but refused help from paramedics. She was found dead in her room the next morning. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. Flett pled guilty to manslaughter 2 weeks ago and was sentenced to 8 years in prison, less time served. She has about 6 years remaining in her sentence. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, the New Brunswick Liberal Party won a majority government in last night's provincial election. Liberal leader Susan Holt will be the next premier with 31 seats. In her victory speech, Holt vowed to support everyone in New Brunswick.
I love you, New Brunswick. And with me, you're going to get a leadership that listens and a leadership that cares, a leadership that will respect you, n'importe quelle langue vous parlez, no matter who you love or how you identify, no matter where you live.
Some of those words a jab at the incumbent Progressive Conservative Premier Blaine Higgs, who campaigned against the French language in the 1980s and whose recent government wanted to inform parents when students were asked to use different names or gender pronouns at school. Meanwhile, we still do not have a final result from last Saturday's provincial election in British Columbia. A recount in some ridings is taking place this week. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8, and you can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. I'm Faith Fundahl here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. We're just about 36 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Hello to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. You might be hearing some kerfuffles around me. You are hearing Rudy, the dog, and his foster mom, Carol. They'll be coming on the program. Well, Carol will be on the program to talk more about Rudy's search for his forever home. He is gaining a pretty big online following. We'll have that conversation still to come on the program. Stay tuned for that. And if you have a chance, go to YouTube, because then you'll get to see Rudy the dog. Abby Adiemi has been following the forecast. Because it's going to get wet/is wet, depending on where you are.
Don't forget the umbrella as you step out this morning. Currently 10 degrees, the clouds gathering there. We're expecting rain this morning. That will taper off in the afternoon. About 5 millimeters expected for the city, and then becoming breezy as temperatures will be dropping to around 5 degrees tonight with mostly cloudy conditions. Brandon is currently sitting at 7 with a light rain at this time, which will be ending around your lunch period. Cloudy skies will follow that through the rest of the day, and then we'll see highs of 8 degrees. Tonight will stay cloudy before clearing after midnight. As we move to the north, Thompson is chilly at -4 at this time. Cloudy skies we're seeing. The forecast calls for mainly cloudy conditions, a good chance of flurries with a high of -1. We're going to be seeing some light breeze, making it even feel cooler this morning. Churchill is at -1 at this time. Also, cloudy conditions we're seeing. But for that region, we should see a mix of sun and clouds today. A chance of flurries this afternoon. Temperatures will be dropping to around -3. Dauphin is sitting at 4. Light rain also being felt in that part of the province. The rain will end and followed by cloudy conditions. We'll see highs near 8 degrees. And then for tonight, that cloudy conditions will continue as we get closer to midnight. That should be clearing off for folks in Dauphin. Gimli sitting at 7, also cloudy at this time. Forecast for the Interlake region calls for a rainy start to your morning. That will taper off in the afternoon. We should be seeing some breezy northwest winds today, and temperatures will be falling to around 6 degrees later. Tonight, the clouds will be clearing close to the midnight time. Steinbach, 9 and cloudy. Forecast calls for rain this morning. That will taper off this afternoon also. We should see around 5 to 10 millimeters of rain. Expect the temperatures to drop to 6 degrees. And for Morris, it's currently 9 degrees over there. Forecast for the Pembina Valley region calls for rain starting sometime this morning, also ending in the afternoon. 5 to 10 millimeters expected, and then temperatures will be dropping to around 6 this afternoon. Some clear skies later tonight. In summary, we're going to be seeing more I'll tell you, grab your umbrella on your way out because the rain will be starting for most region. Like the whole of the south will see rain today, and then we'll see temperatures just dropping all the way to 5-6 degrees tonight. But we'll be seeing, and then tomorrow we're going to see some sunshine.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Sabi Ariemi, our technician today. May McKillop is following the commute. Good morning.
Good morning, Faith. We got a call from Natasha to let us know that northbound Lashimodiere between Epinochi-Mikina and Fermor is down to 1 lane, and that's causing quite a bit of backups today. As well, I noticed northbound Portage right at Main, the left turning lane is down to 1 lane for commuters turning north onto Main. So I'm curious how that's shaping up for commuters this morning. If anyone is seeing anything out there getting in their way or they wanted to let us know how the commute is going, give us a call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much. May McKillop, our studio director here on the program. We're at 20 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on YouTube. I'm in for Marcy Marcusa. It is Tuesday, or Rudy Tuesday. If you're a member of Winnipeg's online Reddit community, you might be looking forward to your weekly update on our next guest. Rudy is a 1-year-old shepherd mix, and he is looking for his forever home. For the folks who are watching us on our YouTube stream, you can see him sitting or laying down and eating his little treat here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. Cara Corvino has been fostering Rudy for the past few months. She is with Penny's All Breed Rescue. Every Tuesday, she reaches out to Winnipeg's Reddit community in the hopes of finding Rudy a forever home. Kara's weekly Rudy Tuesday posts share updates on Rudy's life and his quest to find a home, and they have been getting a lot of traction online. Kara joins us now along with Rudy. Welcome to the program. Hello.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Talk about that traction. What do you make of what folks, or how folks have started to follow and watch what you say when it comes to these Rudy Tuesday updates?
Yeah, that was a surprising part for me. I didn't realize that I would have such a following. I just wanted to get Rudy out on every single platform. So I post on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, another app called Neighbors. I actually didn't even use most of these apps beforehand. So I just wanted to get his picture out and his name out in hopes of reaching just the perfect person to adopt him.
And I love that he has this scarf, and it says,
"I'm a foster, adopt me."
I'm a foster, adopt me. What's that been like? How has the search been for his forever home?
Yeah, so when I started fostering, I thought it was going to be a shorter time period, which it's fine that it's been longer. It was something that I wanted to do because I lost a dog really close to me, and just as part of like my grieving journey to give back, I wanted to foster and give a dog a chance to, find their forever home. And in that process, learning that we're kind of in this unprecedented time where dogs are just not being adopted, and there's also not a lot of fosters either. So that was a little bit surprising to me.
It's kind of like a double whammy, because you don't have enough people wanting to take in dogs, but also foster parents as well.
Yeah, exactly. And he's such an amazing dog that it just blew my mind that, he wasn't getting the attention that I was hoping that he would. So that's kind of what inspired me to start posting.
So you started posting on Reddit. What did you make of the reaction people from the people out there?
Yeah, I didn't expect that. That's actually what keeps me posting, because people are so invested. And a lot of people will say, I can't adopt him for a variety of reasons, maybe because of housing or whatever.
Right.
But they say, please keep posting because this is like the best part of my week, which is so kind and inspiring. So that definitely keeps me going.
What do you know about Rudy's life before he was rescued?
So he came from up north. I didn't know a ton about him when he first came to me, but I guess he came down in pretty bad shape. I think he had some wounds. I think his fur was in bad shape. He was around 5 months old. And when he came to me initially, he had no manners. So we're really starting from square one at around 5 months old.
And yet here we are doing an interview with the TV lights on.
Yes.
And he's just sitting there doing his thing.
Excelled, yeah. And as much as you invest in him, he will give you 10 times back. So I've done a level 1 obedience with him. He did great. We're starting level 2 obedience. His potential is endless.
Do you have a sense of what a suitable home would be for Rudy, or even maybe the best home for Rudy?
Yeah. So I think somebody who, you don't have to be super active, but if you like to get outdoors, go for a walk, but really someone who wants to have like a companion dog. Rudy's not going to, come in your house and be wallpaper. He's going to be the star of the show. So if you want a companion and you want to take him everywhere you go, this is the perfect dog for you. You like to be in nature, go outside. He loves car rides. He loves anything. So just somebody that really wants to continue to invest in him because he has just so much potential. It's really exciting to see how much he has like evolved and flourished since he's been with me.
Folks might wonder, why don't you adopt Rudy?
Great question. And I'm glad you asked that because I have been asked that on Reddit before. And it's hard to answer because people foster for different reasons. And for me, it was part of my grieving journey. And so having Rudy was definitely not ever a plan to adopt him. It
was your forever plan?
Yeah, my forever plan was to have him find his perfect home so somebody could have that special relationship with him like I had with the dog that passed away. And we need fosters because if I adopted every dog that I fostered, I wouldn't be able to keep fostering, right? So it allows me to, once he finds his perfect home, take the next dog and be able to foster them.
If someone is out there interested in adopting Rudy, what do you suggest they do?
Yeah, so he's through Penny's All Breeds Rescue. The best way is to go online. I usually post the link right in the posts themselves. So you can fill out an adoption form and then they'll contact you just to make sure it's the right fit. And that's really the best way. And again, I have the link usually in my Reddit posts. So you can just follow that or just Google Penny's All Breed Rescue. If you're interested in fostering instead of adopting, you can also just follow the link and fill out a foster form.
So that's Penny's allbreedanimalrescue.ca.
Yes.
Penny's allbreedanimalrescue.ca. Thank you for coming in and for the work that you do. And it's very nice to meet both of you.
Thank you for having us. It's been great.
Cara Corvino is a foster with Penny's All Breed Rescue. Rudy is a shepherd mix who is looking for his forever home. If you're on our YouTube feed, you can see what he looks like. He is super cute. And look at him. We're having an interview here, and he's just doing his own thing. You can find more information about Rudy and how to adopt him at Penny's allbreedanimalrescue.ca.
There is no heaven when I'm not with you, and there's no sky to speak to. It sounds so needy. Yes, I need you I'm terrified. Somehow that feels good. With
That was Daniela Andrade out of Montreal with a tune called Biking. We're at 11 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. As you've been hearing, a Winnipeg runner is recovering in hospital after suffering a heart attack this weekend. The man had just crossed the finish line at the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service half marathon Sunday morning when he collapsed. Jonathan Torquia is the founder and director of the race and owner of City Park Runners. He worked as a paramedic for 13 years. Jonathan says he was meters away when the man went into cardiac arrest and he leapt into action. Jonathan joins us by Zoom now. Welcome to the program. Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Take us back to Sunday. It's just after 10 a.m. People are coming across the finish line. When did you realize that something was wrong?
Yeah, you nailed it when you said it was 10 a.m. That's like the busiest time at the finish line for the half marathon. It's that 2-hour mark. And I was just doing my walking around at the finish line, just making sure, checking boxes, and coming back up towards the finish line. I saw someone go down, and immediately St. John's ambulance, our first aiders at the finish line, jumped into action, and I got down there, and about a couple seconds after, probably about a minute after he went down, and I felt the guy's carotid pulse, and he was pulseless. He wasn't moving, wasn't breathing, and with having the previous history of being a paramedic, you can tell pretty quickly someone who's lifeless or flaccid versus someone who still has, muscle tone and muscle composure. So I knew right away this guy was out for the count. Full cardiac arrest.
Was it easy for you or what were you even thinking when your brain swapped from race director to someone with a history of paramedicine service? I mean, did that just kind of happen on the fly?
It did, in a sense. For me, the scary thought and the thing was I knew the gentleman personally, in a sense of he comes to the shop quite often, and so that when I rolled his body over and looked down to see who it was, I went, oh my God, immediately in my head. But I didn't want to give off any kind of shock or vibration that there's even more of a panic here, because that would just send everyone into a spiral. So ripped off his bib right away, handed over to the timekeepers to get a hold of his wife, and then immediately, like, every single link and chain of command, the whole process was a direct result of the positive outcome for this guy. Definitely, I would say having that previous medical training and history for sure, but I'll say every person that hopped in, like, we had off-duty nurses, some gentlemen hopped the fence and started compressions, my race committee members doing, bag valve mask, artificially breathing for him. And we were able to, shock him with the AED and revive him, resuscitate him.
And CPR is a team effort, isn't it?
Oh, it's a full team effort. Like, you need to have like a quarterback, call it, who is calling the shots. Okay, you on compressions, you on the airway, you on the AED kind of thing. So it has to be that saying that there's no broken links in our system there. So I really do attribute that to the positive outcome, because if there was a broken link in there was a delay in getting the AED, there's a delay getting compressions going, or delay in any of those processes, it probably wouldn't have been that good of an outcome. I mean, there's no good spot to have a cardiac arrest, but I'll say that he fell at the right place at the right time. Because if he had fallen, say, 500 meters previous on Shaftesbury Boulevard before coming to the finish chute area, maybe it would have been a different outcome. Maybe the AED wouldn't have been applied as quick, or compressions would have been started as quickly, or checking for a pulse and all those kind of things, right? So in that thing, like, literally every single minute is unbelievably important. So I'm so thankful for our team and the logistics, on the medical side, and everyone involved to make this happen.
You got to see him in hospital. How's he doing?
Yeah, I to this day, to this moment, I'm texting with him, and every day, almost a couple times a day, I'm checking in with him. Yeah, right after the race wrapped up and we cleaned up the race, it's all I had in my mind was, I need to go see him. Like, I need to go see how he's doing. So yeah, I paid a visit to him after the race. And you know what? We were talking and chit-chatting and, smiling and having some jokes and some small talk about running and just like life in a weird way. Like, I think in that moment, he was pretty naive to what had just happened. I think it's now starting to process and set in. But he jokingly said he wants to ring the PR bell because he ran a personal best that day. And in his words, he was joking around that his Apple Watch didn't stop, so he never got to actually officially record on his own thing for Strava or whatever that he got the personal best. So he said, next year I'm going to come back and actually get it recorded in that sense. But nonetheless, his time did record when he came through the finish line. And that was a small little fun moment there to see him smiling. And I held his hand tight and said, man, you're one lucky dude. You're one lucky guy.
What did he say?
He said he was almost speechless. I said, like, Google it up, look it all up, like people who have cardiac arrests and the outcomes. I said, like, you are like this, like I'm talking to an angel right now. I said, it's really remarkable. In my career, I said 90% of the time plus it goes the other way, where you try all the efforts in the world to resuscitate someone and the outcome wasn't as good. So I think in all this chaos and tests and stuff that's happening now in the hospital for him these next couple of days, it'll start to really sink in and set in that, there's angels looking over him. And we're joking around. He said, well, man, you're invincible. You're almost invincible. A cardiac arrest didn't take you out. He said, watching you like stub your toe and collapse. Something else crazy. He said, you know what, you're count your blessings, man. You're back here. You're on this earth. 2 beautiful young children and a wife. Like, it genuinely is a miracle. It's amazing.
Jonathan, it sounds like you're still sort of processing the events. Have you made space to think about this or to talk it through?
Yeah, I have a little bit, and it's so I'm in a whirlwind right now in my own thoughts in my brain, and I'll say that. Like, as a paramedic for all those years I worked as a paramedic, I was pretty good in my own mind at compartmentalizing these things and not attaching myself emotionally or personally to the patients or these scenes that we would roll up on, whether it be horrific or young children or old, young, or whatever the scenarios were. And I never ever really took it home with me or whatever, but I think with a personal connection to me, knowing this guy and the relationship I have with him. And he was just in the store on Tuesday, and I saw him at the race expo. I shook his hand and we chit-chatted and was excited about the race. And now I had to like switch onto this like race director hat and be like, I genuinely it's not my fault what happened there, but I feel responsibility until he gets home and out of the hospital, in a sense that, then I think my mind will be put at ease at that point. Just because it carries a lot of weight. I would say it's definitely it's a tough thing. It's any race director, any person's worst nightmare, and for that to happen, so so many different avenues and thoughts in my head on that. But I know he's going to make a good recovery, and he's in the best hands there at St. Boniface Hospital. And I'm going to see it through all the way through, to when he gets home and that kind of thing. I think at that point I'll be able to rest my mind a bit more.
Jonathan, I'm glad that he's doing well, and I'm also glad that you're managing okay as also. You did a good thing. Thank you for making space to talk about it, and we'll talk again soon. Take good care.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I just want to leave in saying that early CPR and the use of an AED does truly save lives. It's so vitally important. So thank you.
And you are a good example of how that can save lives. Jonathan Turquia is the founder and director of the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service Half Marathon. He is also the owner of City Park Runners. Let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, and Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, in what appears to be a Manitoba first, a judge has awarded the losing party in a civil lawsuit $100,000 in court costs. In April, Manitoba Court of King's Bench dismissed a lawsuit from a heavy machine operator who sued the city of Winnipeg for loss of income While the worker lost the case, the judge determined the city unjustly banned him from work. We'll hear more. And a lands guardian is working to help protect a UNESCO World Heritage Site in eastern Manitoba. That story coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. I'm Faith Wendell in for Marcy Marcusa. Lots to come here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. World Report is standing by.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
You might know Ganya Dio Horn from her roles in TV shows like Letterkenny and Reservation Dogs, but now she's making her feature directorial debut with a new film called Seeds.
I have an exciting new partnership to share with you all.
She'll be here to tell you how making a stoner comedy led to her, without knowing it, making a movie of cultural currency of Indigenous peoples. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
AI is growing at an astonishing pace. Giants like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are turning to nuclear power to fuel the boom, even reviving 3 Mile Island, the site of the worst reactor accident in the U.S., energizing AI on the current, with guest host Peter Armstrong in half an hour.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The Progressive Conservatives were swept out of power in New Brunswick yesterday. For the first time since 2014, voters rallied behind the Liberals. Susan Holt will be the next premier with a majority government. She is the first woman to win the job in New Brunswick, and she says she's ready.
So I think my impatience and the desire to really deliver better access to health care to New Brunswickers and a more affordable life, that managing that impatience is going to be a challenge.
4 years ago, outgoing Premier Blaine Higgs won a majority PC government. He lost his seat in this election. Saskatchewan's provincial election campaign is in its final days, and for both leading parties, getting voters to the polls early is part of the strategy. Saskatchewan created more in-person voting days to try and boost voter turnout. The CBC's Alexander Silberman reports.
Saskatchewan's party leaders are beginning their final election push, urging voters to make their choice at the ballot box as early as today.
There is an advantage to voting early.
Saskatchewan party leader Scott Moe says heavy rain on BC's election day likely stopped some voters from casting ballots. He encouraged his supporters to take advantage of the ability to cast their ballots early.
Don't wait until next Monday.
In Regina, NDP leader Carla Beck also called on eligible voters to get out before the actual election day on October 28th. She says many ridings are shaping up to be tight races.
Every vote in this election is going to matter. We are so incredibly close.
Saturday was the deadline for mail-in ballots, something about 30,000 people took advantage of. But election officials are hoping many more cast early ballots during this early voting week, every day except for Sunday, at more than 300 early voting locations across the province. Michael Boda is Saskatchewan's chief electoral officer. He says this is the third election with expanded in-person voting days.
The fundamental reason here for creating voting week has been to broaden access to voters across the province.
While many voters may be casting ballots before Election Day, that won't necessarily mean early results. Some mail-in ballots will be counted later, potentially leaving some ridings too close to call for days. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Regina.
Air raid sirens sound out in Tel Aviv ahead of a visit by the U.S. Secretary of State. This is Antony Blinken's 11th visit to the region since the October 7th Hamas attack. He is once again trying to broker a ceasefire in the Middle East. At the same time, Israel is stepping up its attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. The CBC's Sasha Petrusik joins me now from Sderot, near the northern border with Gaza. Sasha, what is happening where you are?
I'm standing on a hill that overlooks the north part of Gaza. Much of it, even from here, looks like it's a bit of a mess. That's the kind of thing that has been going on in Gaza for more than a year, but it has been intensifying over the past few weeks as Israel has said that it needs to move into these areas where it says Hamas militants have reemerged. So they have now gone into places like the Jabalia refugee camp, the biggest one in Gaza traditionally, and they are surrounding hospitals, they are surrounding schools that are acting as shelters, those kinds of things, and have been for days, to the point where the doctors and the people inside the hospitals and also UN relief agencies have been complaining that aid is not making its way in and that they are preventing people from getting out. I have to say here that Israel is saying the exact opposite, that they are doing everything they can to get aid in and to help people get out. But both witnesses in the hospitals, as well as the Hamas-run officials and UN staff, are saying exactly the opposite.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is back in the region today. What are the expectations during his visit?
Blinken is seeing an opportunity here because of the death of the head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, last week. He is making the argument to the Israelis, look, you've scored a win here. This is a victory for you, a military victory. Take it and use the opportunity to come up with some sort of a ceasefire where you will still look strong, but it will allow you to bring back the remaining Israeli hostages, about 100 of them, who are still being held in Gaza right now. And then we can move ahead and see if we can solve this without more fighting.
Thank you, Sasha.
My pleasure, Marcia.
The CBC's Sasha Petrusik in Israel near the northern Gaza border. In exactly 2 weeks from today, U.S. voters will head to the polls to elect their next president, while former President Donald Trump is amping up his criticism against his opponent. Vice President Kamala Harris is pulling in support from across the aisle. The CBC's Karen Pauls joins me now from Washington. And Karen, what are the campaigns up to today?
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris is in Washington today and not on the campaign trail, but her interview on NBC airs tonight. And her running mate, Tim Walz, is campaigning in Wisconsin, where early voting begins today. He'll be at a rally this afternoon with former President Barack Obama, and then they'll split up for some more events this evening. Now, the Harris campaign is hoping her whirlwind swing state tour with anti-Trump Republican Liz Cheney will continue to reverberate. There have been reports of signs popping up in women's washrooms in North Carolina, Georgia, and other states saying your vote is secret and your husband can't know what you're doing in the voting booth. Cheney addressed that head on.
And I would just remind people, if you're at all concerned, you can vote your conscience and not ever have to say a word to anybody. And there will be millions of Republicans who do that on November 5th.
The Harris campaign hopes Cheney can be their bridge to millions of Republican women, especially in those crucial swing state suburbs.
And what about Donald Trump?
Former President Donald Trump has a roundtable with Latinos in Florida this morning, and then he'll be back in North Carolina tonight. Last night, he told faith leaders about the threat he says Harris poses to them.
She's very destructive to religion. She's very destructive to Christianity and very destructive to evangelicals and to the Catholic Church. In our movement, we love Christians, we welcome believers, and we embrace followers of Jesus.
With just 2 weeks left until Election Day, an estimated 17 million Americans have already voted. More will get the chance starting today.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Karen Pauls reporting from Washington. Businesses across Canada are adjusting to Ottawa's changes to the temporary foreign worker program. There's a new cap on the number of workers a business can hire. The program has shifted direction several times in the past few years. Shayna Luck has been looking into the story of some Canadian tire workers who started during a post-pandemic surge in hiring. They say they quit over their working conditions and pay.
I was crying
going to work.
Jean Crescencio says he left what he felt was an unhealthy workplace. He says the Canadian Tire didn't abide by the contract he signed coming to Canada. The store on the west side of Toronto was approved to hire 34 foreign workers starting in 2022, but many left before their work permits expired. Crescencio says the store owner paid him less than the agreed-upon wage in their contracts, and he couldn't adequately support his family. But he was reluctant to leave because of the closed work permit tying him to the store.
It's like a cage. You can't choose kind of jobs that make you comfortable. This work permit, they use this to exploit you.
Catherine Connolly is with McMaster University in Hamilton and has studied the foreign worker program for 10 years. She thinks closed work permits should end, but believes none of the federal government's recent changes have addressed it.
It literally does trap the worker. It ties them to the workplace. And so people endure considerable mistreatment.
According to federal government numbers, in the last 5 years, the number of workers who've applied to move from closed to open permits because of abuse has gone up dramatically. The Canadian Tire store's owner, Izil Natarajan, said he vehemently denies all the allegations against him. Canadian Tire Corporation said in an email it's deeply concerned and investigating the details and validity of the allegations. It also said all stores make independent hiring decisions. The province of Ontario has an open investigation into the store. The federal government wouldn't confirm whether it does too. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
And Shayna has an in-depth look at this story on our website, cbcnews.ca. It is the most read story on our main page this morning. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. And hello to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. On the program, we're going to have a conversation about what would drive a person to harm a pet or a stray animal. Last week, CBC reported about the arrest of 2 people charged in connection with disturbing videos of cats being tortured and killed on the dark web. Coming up next, we'll speak with an expert to learn more about the psychology behind animal abuse. It's coming up here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the Listen app, and, of course, on YouTube. At 11 minutes after 8 o'clock, let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. And Heather Wells joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, drama at a fundraiser for the Heart and Stroke Foundation on Sunday. A runner crossed the finish line of the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service half marathon and collapsed in cardiac arrest. The race director was just meters away. He and others grabbed a defibrillator and started CPR. We'll hear what happened coming up. And in what appears to be a Manitoba first, a judge has awarded the losing party in a civil lawsuit $100,000 in court costs. It all has to do with the city of Winnipeg being sued by a heavy machine operator for loss of income. And while the worker lost the case, the judge determined the city had unjustly banned him from work. We'll hear more of the judge's decision in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Abby Adiemi has been following the forecast, and yeah, it's wet out there.
Yeah, the mercury dropped by 1 again for the city now at 9. Today's forecast, we're going to see rain. It's already starting. We should see this stay with us for most of the morning period, and that should taper off by the afternoon. Once this is done, around 5 millimeters of rainfall will be spotted on in the city. Breeze and northwest winds will peak up early, and then temperatures will drop to around 5 degrees later today. For tonight, we're seeing more cloudy conditions that would clear up by tomorrow morning. Some light winds also will be coming, and then we'll feel some chilly nights because we'll be dropping to around -3 as we get into the overnight time. For the northern part of the province, we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds plus a slim chance of flurries this afternoon, and temperatures will fall near -3 for folks in that region. Currently, Churchill at -1 and Thompson at -4. And in the south, we're already seeing the rain here and there. The city is already spotting rain in most areas. That should be ending this afternoon, and then we'll see that temperatures are falling for most areas to around 6 degrees. Brandon currently at 7, Dauphin 4, Gimli 6, Steinbach 9, and Morris 9. Rain will be expect about 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall today. It's going to be a wet day and then breezy conditions in the afternoon, though it's going to turn calm tonight. Don't forget the umbrella. We're heading to a high of, we're just going to drop to 5. There is no high today. We're not warming up today. We're just going to cool off.
It's like the backwards time.
Yeah.
Isn't it? All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Abby Adiemi, our technician today. May McKillop is our studio director today and also following the commute. Good morning.
Good morning. Not on the controls today, directing. We got a couple of calls so far on the commuter line. Natasha called to say that northbound Lajamodier between Abinojimikina and Fermor is down to 1 lane. As well, Kirsty called to let us know, to give us an update on the Portage and Main intersection. So eastbound Portage towards Main, the left lane is closed for road work, and she's saying that it's causing a lot of backup. She's been waiting for about 20 minutes, and she called just a couple of minutes ago. Hopefully that starts to clear up. Although I will say I got another call from St. Vital Impact that there is a large truck stalled on northbound Main just past Portage. So this may cause a fair bit of backups on eastbound or northbound on eastbound Portage. The median and left lane are closed off because of that stalled truck. No crews are on scene yet. Anything you guys are seeing out there, anything that you wanted to update us on, please give us a call, 204-788-3093.
15 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. A warning to our listeners, the details in this story are disturbing. In a few weeks, one of the Winnipeggers accused of torturing and killing 10 cats will be back in court. Chad Cabez and his partner Irene Lima were arrested earlier this month and are facing numerous animal cruelty charges. Police allege the two sold videos on the dark web that showed one of them crushing cats and kittens with their feet. As we await more details of the case, folks are wondering what could push someone to harm an animal. We've reached Amy Fitzgerald. She teaches criminology at the University of Windsor and specializes in animal abuse. And Amy joins us by Zoom. Welcome to the program. Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
This case was a shock to many Winnipeggers. When you heard about this, what came to mind for you first?
Well, unfortunately, this is one of several cases of crush videos that I'm aware of. So, unfortunately, it's something that does take place. But I can understand people, being certainly distraught by the news of what took place.
Can you contextualize this for us? And we should also mention that none of the allegations have been proven in court. But what these folks are accused of doing, I mean, just how common are these sorts of charges?
Well, that's a good question. It's hard to know because, unfortunately, we don't do a particularly good job in the country of tracking animal abuse cases. So we don't have very good data to rely on. And that's certainly an issue. And it's compounded by the fact that animal maltreatment cases tend to be grossly underreported as well. So it's hard to know how many cases like this have taken place within the country.
So hard to have pure data or reliable data. But you do have a sense of why someone might harm animals in this way. What does the research show about what might drive someone to do this?
Well, there are a number of potential factors. So for some, it's related to their own individual gratification. For others, it's related to a desire to exert power and control over another, a vulnerable being. And of course, animals are fairly accessible. So that can also be a contributing factor. There, in many areas in the country, there is an overpopulation of unwanted cats. So it's not hard for individuals to get access to cats. There's also research that points to animal maltreatment as being part of coercion. So some individuals are coerced into committing cases of animal maltreatment. So there can be a number of factors that come into play in individual cases.
What about age? Does it is there anything in the research that suggests a difference between how an adult might or the intent or the driving force behind how an adult might be doing this, or why an adult might be doing this versus why a child might be doing this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of the research has focused on adolescents and has found that it's referred to by some as dirty play. So for some adolescents, they engage in harming animals as a form of, experimentation, but they don't go on to commit other crimes. But the research that has been conducted on older individuals does indicate that the motivation can be different, and the age, if it persists across the life course, that can be indicative of more severity, I'll say, than among young adolescents who are doing it as a form of experimentation and socialization with a friend group.
Amy, the RCMP has said this is the worst case of animal cruelty it's dealt with, and has also expressed concern about folks involved in crimes against animals because there might be a connection between violent behavior escalating and involving humans. Is there a link between animal cruelty and empathy?
Well, the research, there's been quite a bit of research within the past few years, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions. So it does appear that empathy or a lack of empathy, can come into play. But the research is indicating that the relationship between animal maltreatment and human violence is more nuanced than we tend to think. Or that's displayed, in movies and things like that. So there might not be a neat linear progression from harming animals to harming people. But, one might begin by harming people that they're unfamiliar with and then escalate to harming their own pets, then to people. So it's not necessarily a linear progression. But a lot of the research is pointing to a connection between animal maltreatment and forms of human violence.
Is it clear to you what people can do to root out and curb animal abuse? And if this is proven in court, what we've described?
Yeah, well, I think, probably the only positive thing around this case is that someone reported it. So I encourage people, if they suspect animal abuse, animal maltreatment, to report it. Things to watch out for include high turnover in animals in a home, obviously animals in, poor condition, when, if you suspect neglect and things like that. So it's important to report because, as I mentioned, the vast majority of animal maltreatment cases go unreported. And we really do need people to step up and report this, this type of thing if they suspect it or any type of animal maltreatment, really.
Amy, thank you for making time and space to talk about this, and take good care.
You're welcome.
Amy Fitzgerald is a professor of sociology and criminology at the University of Windsor.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
And tune in at noon for Radio Noon. Host Laurie Hoogstraten is filling in for Janet Stewart, and she'll be in the host chair this afternoon. How you get your mail depends a lot on where you live. So-called community mailboxes are the norm in many suburbs, including in new subdivisions. But door-to-door delivery remains in place in many urban areas. Despite the multi-million-dollar cost of maintaining that service, it was exactly 10 years ago this month that Canada Post began ending that practice, only to have their efforts blocked by the newly elected Liberal government. The CBC's Blair Sanderson delivers this look at how that left an uneven landscape of mail service in this country.
These are big hills. Here we go. There's another hill after this. What? Oh, yeah.
Danny Martin is taking me on a little hike from his front door to the nearest cluster of community mailboxes.
We made it. There's my insurance claim and a bunch of flyers. Yay!
Martin's neighborhood was one of the first urban conversions away from door-to-door delivery back in October of 2014.
It's not the end of the world.
But 10 years ago, it was reported as the end of an era.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It's a service Canadians have relied on for generations. But today, Canada Post announced it is phasing out door-to-door mail delivery in cities across this country.
The move was a cost-cutting measure. At the time, the Conservative Harper government supported the decision, but the opposition and many big city mayors did not. In 2015, Montreal Mayor Denis Coderre went as far as destroying the concrete slab of an upcoming community mailbox with a jackhammer.
Le message qu'on envoie aujourd'hui, c'est que Post Canada va nous respecter.
And that same year, the federal Liberals won government.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends, a real change.
Soon after, the government forced Canada Post to halt its expansion of community mailboxes in urban areas.
Well, first of all, you got to make sure you bring your keys.
Stuart Darcy's neighborhood was one of the last to make the switch.
I was like 4 days or a week after that, they did away with the door-to-door. And so now people, 4 blocks away are getting door-to-door, and we're not getting door-to-door. So, what's the logic there?
Darcy says he's not personally bothered by having to use a community mailbox, but he says there are others with mobility issues on his street that find it challenging. And he wonders if the switch was worth it.
And I don't know, does it actually save? I'm not quite sure if it actually saves anything.
I estimate the cost of home delivery to these neighborhoods in Canada are somewhere in around $700 or $800 million.
That's Ian Lee, a professor of strategic management at Carleton University, who says Canada Post should be allowed to finish the job it started 10 years ago.
This is low-hanging fruit that could be plucked to try to stabilize and reform Canada Post because they're hemorrhaging cash. The CEO of Canada Post said only 3 months ago, Canada Post will run out of money this year, 2025 this year, and they will have to be bailed out by the taxpayers. They've already been losing money steadily for the last 7 years.
But Canada Post says it is not looking to convert remaining urban households to community mailboxes. Instead, it wants to focus more on the growing demand for parcel delivery by expanding service to weekends and weekday evenings. The union representing postal employees says it's willing to negotiate so long as the health and safety of workers is a top priority. Professor Ian Lee says the health of the whole operation depends on big changes.
They have to do radical surgery to reinvent the post office to deliver those e-commerce parcels that are skyrocketing, because e-commerce is skyrocketing.
Okay.
Meanwhile, back at his community mailbox, Danny Martin says he understands the delivery environment is changing. But he still wishes that 10 years ago, his urban neighborhood wasn't chosen as one of the first to lose door-to-door delivery.
I feel kind of ripped off, right? The way it is.
For CBC Radio, I'm Blair Sanderson.
Thanks very much, Blair. We're coming up to 28 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. Lori Hookstratton joining us now in studio for more on what's coming up on Radio Noon. Good morning.
Good morning. What's coming up on Radio Noon is pickleball.
Ooh,
yes.
fun.
Well, this just in, an American franchising kind of official pickleballer thing called Pickler is coming to Canada. 65.
Pickler, I love that.
I know. 65 locations will open across Canada, including a couple in Manitoba. So we wanted to talk about how the popularity of pickleball has just exploded in Manitoba and everywhere else. And, you know, a lot of people love it. Some people really don't like it because the noise of the ball, like clackety-clack, and because that hard ball. So we want people to call in with, do they play? Do they want to play? Do they think this commercialization of pickleball is a good thing? And just talk all about pickleball because we're getting into that season where we want to do stuff because we're going to be, as you may have noticed this morning, getting kind of damp and chilly out there. And we will be joined by the president of the Pickleball Manitoba Association.
It's going to be a very fun conversation.
I hope so.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
It's Lori Hookstratton hosting Radio Noon later today on CBC Radio 1 starting at 12 o'clock, and the call-in portion starts at 12:30, or at least just shortly after 12:30. Just about 29 minutes after 8 o'clock, and May McKillop is back for an update on the commute. Good morning.
Good morning. We've gotten quite a few calls in the last half hour. I'll start with a few road closures. So northbound Lajamodiere between Abenoji-Miikina and Fermor is down to one lane. Natasha called that in. As well, we got a call about a stalled vehicle in the median lane on eastbound Grant just after Waverley. As well, we got a call about a large stalled truck on northbound Main just past Portage, so right at the intersection. The median and left lane are closed off, and we got a call shortly afterwards about what kind of backups that is causing. So from northbound, from Portage and Main, it's causing backups all the way eastbound, all the way to Archibald. So all Provencher, that's quite far. Oddman called to give us an update on that. This is our last traffic hit of the day. I'm really hoping everyone gets through that smoothly. Thank you for all of the calls and updates today. We always appreciate it. Have a great day.
And yes, we'll have a little bit more in our next little half hour. May McKillop, our studio director here today on the program. I'm Faith Fundal. More to come after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg, and it's starting. The rain is falling lightly right now, but the wind is now starting to pick up, northwest 20 to 30. It's 9 degrees. We're going to get windier and wetter and colder as our temperature falls to 5 this afternoon. Call it the Marathon Miracle. A runner in Sunday's Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service half marathon is recovering after going into cardiac arrest at the finish line. Race director Jonathan Torkia was meters away when the man collapsed. He and others nearby jumped into action, grabbing a defibrillator and starting CPR. When the man's heart started beating again, he was rushed to St. Boniface Hospital. Torkia, who worked as a paramedic for 13 years, says it's a miracle he survived.
What could have been a very terrible, sad, heartbreaking disaster, positive outcome, but those are far and few. In my career as a paramedic, I saw, I would say, 90% go the other way.
Torkia says CPR and defibrillators can save lives. The event on Sunday was a fundraiser for the Heart and Stroke Foundation. It appears to be a Manitoba first. The losing party in a civil lawsuit has been awarded $100,000 in court costs. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, the case involves a heavy machine operator who was banned from working for the city of Winnipeg.
In 2017, the city banned a contractor, claiming he lied, trespassed, and stole equipment. The worker sued the city for loss of income, but failed in court because he did not prove city officials engaged in misfeasance, caused loss by unlawful means, or breached a duty to be fair. In April, Manitoba Court of King's Bench Justice Chris Martin said this was no vindication for the city. The judge said the worker proved there was no basis for the claims made about him. In a decision issued Friday, Martin awarded the worker $100,000, noting the city gave him no choice but to sue, prolong the legal proceedings, and then reneged on a position it would lift the ban. The judge said he's not aware of a Manitoba precedent for awarding costs to a losing party. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A woman has been sentenced to 8 years behind bars in the death of Phelan Johnston. The 28-year-old died after she was attacked outside a Winnipeg shelter in June of 2023. Johnston had been living at the Salvation Army Centre of Hope at the time of her death. 42-year-old Rebecca Marina Flett pleaded guilty to manslaughter earlier this month. Court heard Flett attack Johnston multiple times, punching her in the face and body. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the head. With time served, Flett has about 6 years remaining in her sentence. A lands guardian is working to help protect a UNESCO World Heritage Site in eastern Manitoba. It is called Pimachowanake and straddles the Manitoba-Ontario border. It is home to 2 provincial parks and 4 First Nations. 23-year-old Owen Bear is the lands guardian for Poplar River First Nation. He hopes to help people connect with the land for generations to come.
It's a really beautiful place, and it is one of our traditional lands that we have the right to go to, and people have been going there years and years, families, generations. So it's a bit of an understatement to say it's like what it means to them. It's like everything. It's their land and it's their life.
The whole area is about the size of Belgium. It is legally protected from all commercial logging, mining, hydroelectric development, and all waterways are free of diversions and dams. Well, taking a final bow. Jeff Lynne and the Electric Light Orchestra will perform their final concert on July 13th in London, England's Hyde Park. Lynne says his return to touring in 2014 began in Hyde Park, so seems like the perfect spot for ELO's Curtain Call. The final American show is this Saturday outside Los Angeles. Don't want to bring anyone down. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout your day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Abby Adeyemi is back for a last look at the forecast, the very wet forecast.
Yeah, wet forecast across the province. We're seeing cloudy skies with rain in the south, and then we'll see some transition to chilly temperatures later, while the north is seeing flurries and colder temperatures. Tonight, temperatures will dipping down to like around the 4 and 5s for the southern part of the province, though we will see some clearing tomorrow, and then more like some sunshine. Right now, 9 in Winnipeg. Don't forget that umbrella. It's going to be a wet day. The wind is beginning to pick up, and then the rain will stay with us with cooler temperatures moving into the afternoon. We're going to see some breezy conditions to go with that, which will become calm as we get into the evening. A sunny and cool day ahead tomorrow.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi. May McKillop has For Reals last look at the commute.
For reals this time. I just wanted to remind our listeners that there is a lot of backing up happening around Portage and Main. It's starting with a large truck stalled on northbound Main, just past Portage, and that's backing up. Oddman called to let us know from Portage and Main. It's backed up all the way down eastbound Provencher to Archibald, and from Provencher Archibald back up to Nairn actually. So there's a lot of backups happening out there. Thank you to the people who called that in. I hope that starts to clear up soon.
All right, thank you very much. May McKillop, our director here on the program today. Thanks very much to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. And thanks to the folks on our CBC Winnipeg local news desk, Jody Nicolou, Darren Bernhardt, Megan Ketchison, and of course, Heather Wells. Mag-ingat po kayo and take good care wherever you are. Thank you for listening. The Current is standing by. Stay tuned.